You have been lied to about rejection. They told you it means you are not enough, not wanted, not special, not worthy, not lovable. But if that were true, why do some people reject the very love they secretly need? Why do some people ignore kindness, loyalty, patience, and honesty while chasing the things that keep hurting them? Why do you keep breaking your own heart, trying to be seen by people who do not even know how to see themselves? The truth is, you do not feel rejected because you have no worth. You feel rejected because you keep asking the wrong people to recognize it. You keep placing your value in the hands of people whose hands are closed, whose hearts are distracted, and whose minds are full of fear, ego, wounds, and confusion. And when they fail to choose you, you begin to think something is wrong with you. But Buddhist wisdom teaches something deeper. A blind person cannot describe the sunrise, and an empty well cannot give water, no matter how thirsty you are. Tonight, as you listen to these teachings, something inside you will begin to change. The need to prove yourself will slowly become quiet. The pain of being ignored will begin to lose its power. The faces that once made you feel small will no longer decide how you see yourself. You will begin to understand that not everyone who rejects you is above you. Some people reject you because they cannot meet you where you are. Some people cannot value peace because they are addicted to chaos. Some people cannot hold love because they have never learned how to hold their own heart. This is not just a lesson about rejection. This is a return to your own worth. This is where you stop begging the wrong people to see your light and finally remember that your light was never waiting for their permission to shine. Are you ready? Let us begin. So before we go deeper, hold this truth gently. Your light was never waiting for the wrong person to notice it before it became real. The pain began when you handed your worth to someone who did not know how to hold it, then stood there hoping they would return it with kindness. And this is where the first hidden wound begins, not in rejection itself, but in the hunger to be chosen by people who are not even whole enough to choose wisely. There is a kind of hunger nobody talks about. It is not hunger for food, money, praise, or attention. It is the quiet hunger to be chosen by the very person who keeps making you feel invisible. It is the ache of wanting warmth from someone who keeps standing in the cold. It is the painful pull toward people who are emotionally lost, unavailable, confused, or disconnected from their own heart. Yet somehow, their approval feels more important than the love of those who already care. This is why rejection can feel so deep. It does not always hurt because the person is special. Sometimes it hurts because your mind has made them powerful. You have placed them on a throne they never earned. You have turned their silence into a judgment, their distance into a mirror, their indifference into evidence. And suddenly, one person's inability to choose you begins to feel like the whole world has rejected you. But look closely. Some people cannot choose you because they cannot even choose peace for themselves. They cannot choose honesty. They cannot choose healing. They cannot choose emotional maturity. They cannot choose what is good for them without running back to what wounds them. So when they fail to choose you, why do you treat their choice as wisdom? Why do you trust the judgment of someone who does not even know how to sit quietly with their own soul? Buddhist wisdom teaches that suffering often begins when we cling to what cannot nourish us. The mind sees a closed door and becomes obsessed with opening it. It does not stop to ask whether there is anything peaceful behind that door. It simply says, "If I can get in, I will finally feel worthy." But what if the door is closed because the room behind it is empty? What if the person you want to choose you has nothing stable to offer? What if their rejection is not a verdict on your value, but a sign of their own confusion? Many people are walking around with hearts full of unfinished pain. They smile, speak, work, date, marry, lead, advise, and appear confident, but inside they are divided. One part wants love, another part fears it. One part wants peace, another part is addicted to drama. One part wants connection, another part pushes people away the moment intimacy gets too real. When you ask such a person to choose you clearly, you are asking a storm to become a shelter. And this is where your suffering becomes heavier. You are not only experiencing their rejection, you are also fighting reality. You are wanting consistency from someone who lives in confusion. You are wanting emotional safety from someone who has not built safety inside themselves. You are wanting them to recognize your worth while they are still blind to their own wounds. It is like placing a beautiful flower in the hands of someone who has only learned how to hold thorns. This does not mean they are evil. It means they are unready. It means their inner world is not organized enough to meet you with care. In Buddhist understanding, people act from the state of their consciousness. A fearful mind creates fearful choices. A wounded heart creates wounded responses. A restless person brings restlessness into every connection. So when someone cannot choose you in a kind, stable, respectful way, it may say more about the condition of their mind than the condition of your worth. But the ego does not accept this easily. The ego says, if I were better, they would choose me. If I were more beautiful, more patient, more successful, more spiritual, more interesting, more useful, they would finally see me. This is how the hunger begins to grow. You stop asking, are they capable of loving me well? And you start asking, what must I become so they will finally love me? That question is dangerous because it turns love into performance and turns your soul into a stage. You begin to edit yourself. You speak less when you want to speak. You give more when you are already tired. You forgive quickly, not because peace has returned, but because you fear losing them. You pretend not to be hurt, not because you are strong, but because you are afraid your pain will make them leave. You shrink your needs until they become small enough for an emotionally unavailable person to tolerate. Then you call that love. But love that requires you to disappear is not love. It is self-abandonment wearing the clothes of devotion. True love does not ask you to become less real so someone else can remain comfortable. True connection does not require you to beg for basic kindness. True recognition does not make you feel like you are applying for a place in someone's heart every single day. Rejection hurts more when it touches an old wound. If deep inside you there is a part of you that already fears being unwanted, then the unavailable person becomes more than a person. They become a test. Their approval feels like rescue. Their attention feels like medicine. Their choice feels like proof that all the old pain was wrong. So when they do not choose you, it does not feel like one person walking away. It feels like every old wound speaking at once. This is why you may ignore the people who love you peacefully, while craving the person who gives you crumbs. Peace can feel strange when chaos is familiar. A gentle person may feel boring to a heart trained by uncertainty. A stable connection may feel too quiet to someone who has learned to call anxiety chemistry. So the mind runs toward the unavailable person, not because they are best for you, but because they awaken the old hunger you have not healed yet. Buddhist wisdom would ask you to pause before running after that hunger. Not judge it, not hate it, not shame yourself for having it. Just pause and observe it. Where does this hunger live in your body? What story does it tell you? What does it promise you if this person finally chooses you? Does it say you will finally be enough? Does it say the pain will finally stop? Does it say you will finally matter? The moment you observe the hunger, you stop being completely controlled by it. This is mindfulness. You are no longer just the person chasing. You become the witness of the chase. You begin to see, something in me is trying to get peace from someone who has never shown me peace. Something in me is asking a confused person to give me clarity. Something in me is trying to receive worth from someone who cannot even stand firmly in their own. And that awareness is the beginning of freedom. Because the truth is, emotionally lost people often make others feel lost too, not always on purpose. Sometimes their confusion simply spills. They send mixed signals. They come close, then pull away. They praise you, then ignore you. They make you feel important one day and replaceable the next. They give just enough warmth to keep hope alive, but not enough consistency to let your heart rest. And because the mind wants completion, it becomes addicted to solving them. You start studying their moods. You read meaning into every message, every silence, every delay, every glance, every change in tone. You become a detective in someone else's emotional maze. You ask yourself, what did I do wrong? Why did they change? Are they testing me? Are they afraid? Do they care? Should I try harder? But while you are busy analyzing their confusion, you are losing contact with your own peace. This is one of the quietest forms of suffering, when your inner world becomes organized around someone who is disorganized inside. Their distance controls your mood. Their attention gives you temporary relief. Their silence becomes a storm in your chest. Their small kindness becomes enough to restart the hope. You are no longer living from your center. You are orbiting their instability. Buddhist wisdom teaches the middle path, not the path of coldness, but the path of clear seeing. Clear seeing means you stop romanticizing people's inability. You stop calling inconsistency mystery. You stop calling emotional unavailability depth. You stop calling neglect bad timing. You stop calling crumbs potential. You stop decorating the empty bowl and finally admit that it is not feeding you. This does not mean you stop having compassion. Compassion is still needed. You can understand that someone is wounded without handing them the power to wound you again and again. You can feel kindness toward their struggle without making their approval the foundation of your life. You can wish them healing without volunteering to be the place where they keep practicing their confusion. Some people are so disconnected from their own wisdom that they do not know what they are choosing. They choose what flatters their ego, not what nourishes their soul. They choose what is easy, not what is true. They choose what feels familiar, not what is healthy. They choose people who do not challenge them to grow because growth feels threatening. So when they fail to choose you, it may be because your presence asks them to become more honest than they are ready to be. This is painful, but it is also freeing, because it means their rejection is not always a sign that you were too little. Sometimes it means you carried a kind of light they were not prepared to stand near. Your sincerity made them uncomfortable. Your depth asked for a depth they had not cultivated. Your love required a steadiness they had not built. Your presence quietly exposed the parts of them they were still avoiding. Not everyone wants to be awakened. Some people prefer the sleep of distraction. They would rather stay busy than become conscious. They would rather chase pleasure than face emptiness. They would rather keep control than risk true intimacy. If you keep asking such a person to see your worth, you may keep feeling rejected, not because your worth is absent, but because their awareness is asleep. This is why choosing who gets access to your heart is a spiritual practice. It is not just a romantic decision. It is not just a friendship decision. It is not just about who gives you attention. It is about who has the inner capacity to meet you with honesty, respect, presence, and care. In Buddhism, right association matters. The people around you influence your mind. They can pull you toward peace or pull you toward craving. They can help you remember your worth or keep you begging for it. If you sit long enough with people who do not see you, you may begin to stop seeing yourself. If you stay too long around those who dismiss your feelings, you may begin to doubt your own feelings. If you keep loving those who make you feel hard to love, you may begin to believe love must always hurt. This is why the wrong witness can damage your self-image. Not because they have the final truth about you, but because repetition can feel like truth when you are tired. A person can reject you from their wound and still make you bleed. That is why awareness must be joined with boundaries. It is not enough to say they are wounded. You must also ask, what happens to me when I keep placing my heart near their wound? A burning house may have a sad history, but you still do not sleep inside it. A broken glass may not mean to cut you, but you still do not keep holding it with bare hands. Your hunger to be chosen may come from a beautiful place. It may come from your desire to love deeply, to belong, to be understood, to finally feel safe with someone. There is nothing shameful about wanting to be chosen. The problem begins when you want to be chosen by someone who cannot choose from wisdom. The problem begins when their approval becomes more important than your peace. The problem begins when you would rather be hurt by them than released from them. Ask yourself gently, why this person? Why does their choice matter so much? What do you believe will happen inside you if they finally turn around and say, I see you? Will it erase the nights you felt anxious? Will it undo the times they made you question yourself? Will it truly give you peace? Or will it only give temporary relief before the next wave of uncertainty returns? Sometimes what you call love is the nervous system trying to complete an old story. You are not only reaching for the person in front of you, you are reaching for every person who ever made you feel unseen. You are trying to win now what you lost then. You are trying to make this person choose you so the past will finally feel corrected. But the past cannot be healed by repeating it with a new face. Healing begins when you stop saying, why won't they choose me? And begin asking, why do I keep choosing people who make me question my worth? That question is not meant to blame you. It is meant to bring your power back. As long as the focus is only on their rejection, you remain trapped in waiting. But when the focus becomes your pattern, your awareness, your choices, your attachment, then the door of freedom begins to open. There is a part of you that may still believe love must be earned from difficult people, that if someone is hard to reach, their love must be more valuable, that if someone is emotionally distant, winning their closeness means you are special. But this is a trick of the wounded mind. Love is not more valuable because it is harder to receive. A person's emotional unavailability does not make them a prize. Sometimes it simply means they are not ready to love without causing harm. The peaceful person may not give you the same nervous excitement because they do not activate your fear of loss. They do not make you chase. They do not make you decode. They do not make you prove your worth. Their consistency may feel unfamiliar, but unfamiliar does not mean wrong. Sometimes peace feels boring at first because your body is used to surviving emotional storms. Give yourself time to learn the difference between peace and emptiness. Buddhist wisdom invites you to return to the present moment and see things as they are, not as your craving wants them to be. Do not look at potential only. Look at pattern. Do not look at promises only. Look at practice. Do not look at the rare moments of tenderness only. Look at the overall effect on your spirit. After being around them, do you feel calm or confused? Do you feel seen or studied? Do you feel valued or tolerated? Do you feel safe or constantly alert? The body often knows before the mind admits it. Your chest tightens, your stomach turns, your thoughts race. You keep checking your phone. You replay conversations. You feel smaller after speaking. You feel guilty for having needs. You feel relief when they are kind, but not true peace, because you know the kindness may disappear. These are not small signs. They are messages from your own being asking you to come home. Coming home to yourself means you stop treating another person's emotional limitation as your spiritual assignment. You are not here to convince everyone. You are not here to rescue every closed heart. You are not here to prove your softness to people who keep using it as a cushion for their own selfishness. You are not here to stand at the door of someone's confusion until they finally become clear. You can love people and still stop auditioning for them. You can care and still walk away from what keeps harming your peace. You can forgive and still accept that access to you must change. You can understand their pain and still refuse to make your heart a home for their immaturity. This is not bitterness. This is wisdom. This is the quiet strength of someone who has finally learned that compassion without self-respect becomes suffering. When you stop seeking validation from emotionally lost people, your life becomes quieter. At first, the quiet may scare you. You may miss the chase. You may miss the drama. You may miss the small highs that came after long lows. This does not mean you made the wrong choice. It means your nervous system is learning a new language. It is learning peace. It is learning stability. It is learning that love does not have to feel like waiting outside in the rain. And slowly, you begin to notice who actually sees you. The friend who listens without making you feel needy. The person who responds with care, not confusion. The family member who may not be perfect, but shows up with sincerity. The quiet presence of your own breath. The dignity that returns when you stop chasing. The peace that was hidden beneath the noise of wanting to be chosen. Then something powerful happens. You realize rejection did not destroy you. It revealed where you were still giving your power away. It showed you the places inside you that were hungry for outside permission. It exposed the old belief that your worth becomes real only when a certain person confirms it. And once you see that clearly, the spell begins to break. The one who could not choose themselves cannot become the judge of your value. The person who runs from their own truth cannot define your truth. The heart that has not learned presence cannot measure the depth of your presence. The mind trapped in fear cannot understand the beauty of a heart that wants honest connection. So let them be where they are, not with hatred, not with revenge, not with a secret plan to make them regret losing you. Let them be where they are because you are finally ready to be where you are. Let them walk their path while you return to yours. Let them choose from confusion while you learn to choose from wisdom. Let them remain asleep if they must, while you stop begging their dream to recognize your awakening. The hunger to be chosen becomes weaker when you start choosing yourself in small, honest ways. You choose yourself when you stop sending the message that makes you feel ashamed afterward. You choose yourself when you stop explaining your heart to someone committed to misunderstanding it. You choose yourself when you rest instead of chasing. You choose yourself when you say, "This hurts me," and believe your own pain. You choose yourself when you stop calling neglect love simply because you are afraid of being alone. And the more you choose yourself, the less powerful their rejection becomes, not because you become cold, but because you become rooted. A tree does not beg every passerby to admire it before it stands tall. A flower does not stop blooming because one person walks past without noticing. The sun does not become less bright because someone closes their curtains. Your worth does not become smaller because someone did not have the clarity to honor it. This is the first lesson. Rejection hurts most when you ask emotionally lost people to give you spiritual confirmation. It hurts when you make their confused choice the center of your identity. It hurts when you keep bringing your heart to those who have no steady place to put it. But when you see clearly, you stop asking, "Why was I not chosen?" and begin asking, "Was this person even capable of choosing from love, wisdom, and truth?" And sometimes the answer will free you, because you were not rejected by love. You were rejected by someone who did not know how to love from a whole place. You were not rejected by truth. You were rejected by someone who may still be running from truth. You were not rejected by your destiny. You were redirected away from a place where your soul would have kept starving. So breathe. Let the hunger soften. Let the old chase lose its fire. Let the part of you that wanted to be chosen by the unavailable finally hear this. You do not need to be selected by someone who cannot even stand firmly in their own heart. You do not need the approval of a person who has not learned how to approve of peace, honesty, kindness, or themselves. You do not need to keep knocking on a door that only opens wide enough to keep you waiting. Your worth is not waiting there. Your peace is not waiting there. Your life is not waiting there. What is waiting there is another round of proving, hoping, shrinking, explaining, and hurting. And Buddhist wisdom, with all its quiet strength, invites you to step back from that door, place your hand on your own heart, and remember the home you kept abandoning every time you begged the wrong person to choose you. The path begins here, not with anger toward them, but with compassion for yourself, not with the need to punish anyone, but with the courage to stop punishing your own heart. Not with the belief that rejection means you are unworthy, but with the clear understanding that some people cannot see your worth because they have not yet learned how to see anything clearly. And once you understand this, you will stop making their blindness your burden. You will stop making their confusion your identity. You will stop chasing the unavailable as if their love is the final proof of your existence. You will begin to choose better witnesses for your life. You will begin to sit closer to those who bring peace, not panic. You will begin to trust the quiet truth inside you more than the unstable reactions around you. This is how the wound begins to close. Not all at once, not dramatically, not because they finally come back and explain everything, but because you finally stop leaving yourself at the mercy of those who cannot choose with wisdom. And in that moment, rejection loses its throne. It becomes what it always was, one person's limitation, one closed hand, one cloudy mirror, one empty well. Not the measure of your soul. You are still here. You are still whole beneath the ache. You are still worthy without their recognition. And the moment you stop asking the wrong people to see your worth, you begin to see it for yourself. And once you begin to see your worth for yourself, something very important becomes clear. Not everyone who looks at you is truly seeing you. Some people only see through the fog of their own mind. Some people look at your light and feel disturbed by it, not because your light is wrong, but because their inner world is not ready for what it reveals. This is where the next lesson begins. You stop asking why they did not recognize your light, and you start understanding that some eyes are not clear enough to recognize anything beyond their own pain. Some eyes will never recognize your light, not because your light is weak, but because their vision is clouded. This truth can hurt at first, because deep inside, most people want to believe that goodness will always be noticed, sincerity will always be valued, and love will always be understood. You may have believed that if you were kind enough, patient enough, loyal enough, or gentle enough, the right feeling would awaken in them, and they would finally say, "Now I see you." But life does not always work like that. Some people can stand in front of something real and still miss it completely. Buddhist wisdom teaches that perception is not pure in most people. What a person sees is often shaped by their karma, their wounds, their desires, their fears, their ego, their memories, and the stories they have repeated inside themselves for years. They do not simply see you as you are. They see you through the condition of their own mind. A peaceful mind sees differently from a fearful mind. A humble heart sees differently from an arrogant heart. A healed person sees differently from someone who is still bleeding inside but pretending they are fine. This is why two people can look at the same person and see two completely different things. One person may see your kindness and feel safe. Another person may see your kindness and think it is weakness. One person may see your honesty and feel grateful. Another person may see your honesty and feel threatened. One person may see your quietness and recognize depth. Another may call it distance, pride, or coldness. You are the same person, but their eyes are different. their inner world changes the meaning of what they see. This is one of the great causes of emotional suffering. You assume people are seeing reality clearly, so when they misread you, dismiss you, or reject you, you take it as truth. You think, maybe I really am too much. Maybe I really am not enough. Maybe I really am hard to love. Maybe I really did not matter. But what if they were not seeing you clearly at all? What if they were seeing their past, their fear, their insecurity, or their ego and placing your face on it? A person who has been betrayed may look at your loyalty and still expect betrayal. A person who has lived in chaos may look at your calmness and feel uncomfortable. A person who has never received healthy love may look at your care and doubt it. A person controlled by ego may look at your confidence and feel challenged by it. A person full of shame may look at your goodness and feel exposed, so they reject, criticize, withdraw, mock, or ignore, not because they have discovered the truth about you, but because your presence touched something unresolved in them. This is why rejection should not be swallowed too quickly as self-definition. When someone fails to recognize your light, do not rush to make their blindness your mirror. Pause, breathe, ask a deeper question. What kind of eyes are looking at me? Are these eyes trained by compassion or judgment? Are they softened by wisdom or hardened by fear? Are they clear or wounded? Are they seeing me or are they reacting to something inside themselves? In Buddhism, ignorance is not only lack of information, it is a deep misunderstanding of reality. It is the mind seeing through illusion and believing the illusion is truth. A person caught in ignorance may believe temporary things are permanent. Ego is self, craving is love, control is safety, and appearance is value. Such a person may look at you and fail to see what is real because they are busy measuring you by false standards. They may ask, what can this person give me? How do they make me look? Do they flatter my ego? Do they fit my desires? If you do not serve the illusion they are attached to, they may overlook you completely. This is not a small thing. Many people do not love others. They love how others make them feel about themselves. They do not recognize souls. They recognize usefulness. They do not value presence. They value performance. They do not see light. They see status, beauty, money, popularity, convenience, or control. So when you come with sincerity, depth, patience, and real emotion, they may not know what to do with you. Your light does not match the shallow things they were trained to chase, and this can feel deeply unfair. You may ask, why did they choose someone who hurt them over someone who cared? Why did they praise people who used them while ignoring the one who stood by them? Why did they admire noise and miss peace? The answer is painful but freeing. People often choose according to their level of awareness. A person addicted to noise may not recognize peace as love. A person addicted to chasing may not recognize stability as a gift. A person addicted to ego may not recognize humility as strength. This is why you must be careful not to measure your worth by the choices of someone who is still asleep inside. A sleeping person does not see the room clearly. They move through life guided by impulse, habit, fear, and old conditioning. They may choose what repeats their wounds because it feels familiar. They may reject what could heal them because healing feels strange. They may run from someone genuine because being truly seen requires courage. So when they fail to recognize your light, it may not mean your light is dim. It may mean they are still living with closed inner eyes. There is a story hidden inside many painful relationships. One person keeps shining, giving, explaining, hoping, waiting, forgiving, and trying to be understood. The other person keeps missing it. They receive care and call it pressure. They receive truth and call it attack. They receive love and call it neediness. They receive patience and take advantage of it. Then the one who gave begins to wonder, what is wrong with me? But the real question may be, what is happening inside them that makes them unable to receive what is being offered? Some people have wounds that turn love into danger. When love comes close, their fear wakes up. When kindness becomes steady, suspicion enters. When someone sees them deeply, they feel exposed. They may not say this out loud, they may not even understand it themselves. Instead, they create distance, they become cold, they criticize, they act indifferent. They make you feel like you are the problem because they do not know how to admit that intimacy frightens them. This is where your compassion must become wise. Compassion sees the wound, but wisdom refuses to become a victim of it. You can understand why someone cannot see clearly without staying in the path of their blindness. You can say, their fear is real, and still say, I will not let their fear define me. You can say, they are wounded, and still say, I do not have to keep bleeding beside them. This is the balance Buddhism points toward, a soft heart with clear eyes. Karma also shapes perception. In simple words, karma is not only punishment or reward. It is the pattern of causes and effects. It is the way repeated thoughts, actions, habits, and intentions shape the mind. A person who has spent years judging others will not suddenly see with gentleness. A person who has spent years lying to themselves will struggle to recognize truth. A person who has built their identity around pride may see humility as weakness. A person who has trained themselves to take may not recognize the sacredness of receiving with gratitude. So when such a person looks at you, they are not looking from an empty place. They are looking through all the seeds they have watered within themselves. If they have watered envy, they may see your growth as a threat. If they have watered bitterness, they may see your joy as arrogance. If they have watered insecurity, they may see your confidence as an insult. If they have watered selfishness, they may see your needs as inconvenience. Their reaction is fruit from their own garden. This is why you must stop eating every fruit someone hands you. Not every opinion is nourishment. Not every criticism is wisdom. Not every rejection is revelation. Some responses come from minds that have been cultivating confusion for years. If you take every word from such a person as truth, you will allow their inner disorder to enter your own heart. Buddhist wisdom asks you to practice discernment. Discernment means seeing the difference between correction and projection, between truth and wound, between guidance and control. Some people will criticize you because they genuinely see something you can improve. That kind of correction may feel uncomfortable, but it carries care, clarity, and humility. Other people will criticize you because your existence touches their insecurity. That kind of criticism carries heaviness, confusion, and poison. You must learn the difference. If a person's words leave you more awake, more honest, and more connected to your dignity, listen carefully. But if their words leave you shrinking, doubting your goodness, begging for approval, and feeling trapped in shame, pause before believing them. Not all voices deserve to become your inner voice. Not all eyes deserve to become your mirror. Some eyes cannot recognize your light because ego stands in the way. Ego does not simply mean confidence. In Buddhist understanding, ego is the false self we defend, decorate, and protect. It is the identity that says, I must be superior, I must be right, I must be admired, I must not be exposed. When someone lives strongly from ego, they may struggle to truly see another person. They are too busy protecting their image. If your light challenges their ego, they may reject you. If your honesty exposes their dishonesty, they may call you difficult. If your peace reveals their chaos, they may accuse you of being cold. If your independence reminds them that they cannot control you, they may label you proud. If your self-respect blocks their manipulation, they may say you have changed. But sometimes, you have changed simply means You are no longer easy for my ego to use. This is why you must not fear being misunderstood by people who benefited from your lack of boundaries. When you stop begging, they may call you arrogant. When you stop over-explaining, they may call you rude. When you stop accepting crumbs, they may call you ungrateful. When you stop chasing, they may say you never cared. Their eyes were never trained to see your dignity. They only recognized the version of you that made them comfortable. Fear also distorts perception. A fearful person does not see what is present. They see what they are afraid might happen. They may look at your silence and see abandonment. They may look at your success and see rejection. They may look at your needs and see a threat. They may look at your love and see a trap. Fear turns the mind into a dark room where every shape looks dangerous. This is why trying to prove your light to a fearful person can become exhausting. You keep bringing lamps into a room where they keep closing their eyes. You explain, reassure, soften, adjust, and wait. But fear does not disappear simply because someone else performs enough love. Fear must be faced by the person carrying it. You cannot heal someone's blindness by sacrificing your own sight. There are people who will not recognize your light because recognizing it would require them to change. If they admit you were kind, they may have to admit they were cruel. If they admit you were loyal, they may have to admit they took you for granted. If they admit you were patient, they may have to face the ways they abused your patience. If they admit you loved them sincerely, they may have to face the pain of how carelessly they treated that love. So instead of seeing you clearly, they create a version of you they can reject without guilt. They exaggerate your flaws. They ignore your efforts. They focus on one moment of weakness and erase years of goodness. They tell themselves a story where they are innocent and you are the problem. This is not because the story is true. It is because the ego often prefers a comfortable lie to an uncomfortable awakening. This is why closure from such people may never come. They may never sit down and say, "I failed to see you because I was afraid. I dismissed your light because it made me face my darkness. I rejected your love because I did not know how to receive it." Some people are not ready for that level of honesty. Waiting for it may keep you tied to the very blindness that hurt you. Your freedom begins when you stop needing the blind to confess they were blind. You do not need them to admit they misunderstood you before you are allowed to heal. You do not need them to agree that you were valuable before your value becomes real. You do not need their apology to return to yourself. An apology may bring relief, but your peace cannot depend on someone else's awakening. Some eyes will never recognize your light because they are trained to look only for what is missing. There are people who can stand in a garden and complain about one dry leaf. They can receive kindness and point out where it was not perfect. They can be loved deeply and still focus on what they did not get. Their attention is disciplined in dissatisfaction. Nothing is enough because their mind has not learned contentment. Buddhist teaching often speaks about craving, and craving is not only wanting things. It is the restless mind that always says, more, different, better, not this. A person ruled by craving may not appreciate what stands before them because they are always looking somewhere else. They may not see your loyalty because they are chasing excitement. They may not see your depth because they are chasing novelty. They may not see your peace because they are chasing intensity. Their eyes are always ahead, always comparing, always dissatisfied. If you ask such a person to recognize your light, you may become trapped in endless performance. You try to become more interesting, more attractive, more useful, more agreeable, more exciting, more patient. But craving cannot be satisfied by your self-erasure. A restless mind will keep moving the finish line. Today it wants one thing, tomorrow another. If you build your worth around satisfying that kind of mind, you will become tired in a way sleep cannot fix. There are also people who cannot recognize your light because they confuse light with control. They only value you when your light shines in their direction. They like your kindness when it serves them. They like your strength when it protects them. They like your wisdom when it agrees with them. But the moment your light reveals your own needs, your own dreams, your own boundaries, they become uncomfortable. They did not love your light. They loved its usefulness. This is an important difference. Some people do not reject you when you are loving. They reject you when your love stops being convenient. They do not reject your goodness. They reject the moment your goodness develops self-respect. They do not reject your heart. They reject the fact that your heart now has a gate. And because you are used to measuring love by how much you can give, you may mistake their discomfort for your failure. But self-respect is not failure. Boundaries are not darkness. Saying no does not make your light disappear. In fact, a light without a boundary can burn itself out trying to warm people who keep opening the windows. Buddhist wisdom does not ask you to become endlessly available. It asks you to become awake, and an awakened person knows that compassion must include the one who is offering it. Inner blindness is one of the hardest things to accept because it often lives inside people who appear intelligent, successful, charming, or spiritual. Someone may know many words and still lack wisdom. Someone may quote beautiful teachings and still treat people carelessly. Someone may appear calm in public and create confusion in private. Someone may understand ideas but not embody them. This is why you cannot judge clarity by appearance alone. True seeing shows itself in behavior. Does this person listen? Do they take responsibility? Do they become kinder when truth is spoken or more defensive? Do they respect boundaries or punish you for having them? Do they make space for your feelings or only their own? Do they see your humanity or only your role in their life? These questions reveal more than their words ever could. Some people will admire your light from a distance, but reject the responsibility of coming closer. They like the idea of you, but not the reality of loving you well. They like your warmth, but not your needs. They like your presence, but not your truth. They like your patience, but not your pain. They want the blessing of your light without the maturity required to honor it. So they keep you near enough to benefit, but far enough to avoid accountability. This can create deep confusion. You may feel seen one moment and invisible the next. You may receive praise but not commitment, attention but not care, affection but not respect. This half-seeing can be more painful than being ignored completely because it keeps hope alive. It makes you think, they can see me, they just need more time. But partial recognition is not the same as true recognition. Someone can notice your light and still lack the courage to meet it properly. Do not mistake being noticed for being valued. Many people notice beauty, but not all honor it. Many people notice kindness, but not all protect it. Many people notice depth, but not all are ready to enter it. Recognition is not proven by words of admiration. It is proven by the quality of care that follows. Buddhist wisdom teaches you to observe actions without clinging to fantasy. The mind loves to build stories from small signs. One kind message becomes proof. One soft moment becomes a promise. One apology becomes transformation. But awareness asks, what is the pattern? A person's pattern is their teaching. Their repeated behavior shows the state of their mind more clearly than their most beautiful sentence. If their pattern is confusion, believe the pattern. If their pattern is avoidance, believe the pattern. If their pattern is taking without giving, believe the pattern. If their pattern is disappearing when you need clarity, believe the pattern. This does not mean you hate them. It means you stop arguing with reality. Some eyes will never recognize your light because they are covered by comparison. A comparing mind cannot receive what is present because it is always measuring it against something else. It asks, is this better than what I had? Better than what others have? Better than what I expected? Better than what my ego wants? Comparison turns people into objects and love into a marketplace. In that marketplace, depth is often overlooked because it cannot be displayed quickly. Your light may be quiet. It may not announce itself loudly. It may not compete for attention. It may show itself through consistency, forgiveness, patience, honesty, emotional depth, and gentle strength. But a person trained by comparison may miss these things because they are looking for sparkle, not substance. They may choose what shines loudly and ignore what glows steadily. Later, they may discover that noise is not warmth, but that is their lesson to learn. You do not need to become louder to be worthy of being seen. You do not need to turn your soul into a performance for people who cannot appreciate quiet truth. Some of the most sacred things in life are not loud. Breath, dawn, healing, trust, prayer, forgiveness, inner peace. The fact that someone cannot recognize quiet beauty does not make quiet beauty less real. This lesson requires grief, not dramatic grief, but the quiet grief of accepting that some people may never understand what they had in front of them. They may never see how much courage it took for you to love after being hurt. They may never understand how many times you chose patience when walking away would have been easier. They may never know how much you carried silently. They may never realize that your light was not ordinary. Let that grief move through you without turning it into self-hatred. Do not say, "They did not see me because I was not enough." Say, "They did not see me because their seeing was limited." Do not say, "I wasted my light." Say, "I learned where not to place it." Do not say, "I was foolish for caring." Say, "I am learning to care with wisdom." This shift is powerful. It allows you to remain soft without remaining naive. It allows you to keep your heart open without handing it to careless hands. It allows you to bless people from a distance without returning to places where your spirit had to beg for oxygen. The Buddha's path is not about forcing the world to see you correctly. It is about seeing clearly enough that the world's confusion no longer owns you. You cannot control another person's perception. You cannot climb inside their mind and clean every window. You cannot remove the dust of their karma, the fog of their fear, the mask of their ego, or the shadows of their wounds. That is their work. Your work is to stop confusing their fog with your face. When someone misreads you, breathe before you become the version they created. When someone undervalues you, pause before you shrink to match their estimate. When someone rejects you, do not immediately kneel before their opinion. Ask whether their eyes were clear. Ask whether their heart was open. Ask whether their mind was ruled by wisdom or fear. Ask whether they were capable of recognizing what was in front of them. This does not make you superior. It makes you free. You are not saying, "I am better than them." You are saying, "Their perception is not my prison." You are not using spirituality to avoid growth. You are using wisdom to separate useful reflection from unnecessary suffering. If there is something to learn, learn it. If there is something to correct, correct it. If there is something to release, release it. But do not turn every blind reaction into a sacred judgment against your soul. There is a deep peace that comes when you stop needing every eye to become clear. You stop chasing explanations. You stop rehearsing speeches in your mind. You stop trying to prove that you were kind, that you were real, that you mattered. You stop waiting for the person who misunderstood you to become the person who validates you. You begin to understand that some people were not sent to recognize your light. Some were sent to teach you not to hand your light to those who live with closed eyes. And once you learn this, your energy changes. You no longer walk into every room asking, "Do they see me?" You begin asking, "Can I see clearly?" You no longer make it your mission to be understood by people who are committed to misunderstanding. You begin to value the quiet safety of those who do not require you to prove your humanity. You begin to notice that being truly seen does not feel like begging. It feels like resting. The right eyes do not make you perform endlessly. They do not make you twist your truth into shapes they can tolerate. They do not make you feel like your light is a problem to be explained. They may not understand everything about you immediately, but they approach you with humility, curiosity, and care. They do not use their wounds as weapons. They do not make their fear your sentence. They do not punish you for shining in a way they have not yet learned to shine. This is why choosing your witnesses matters. A witness is not just someone who watches your life. A true witness sees with enough tenderness and honesty to help you remain connected to yourself. Wrong witnesses make you doubt your light. Right witnesses help you protect it. Wrong witnesses turn your gifts into burdens. Right witnesses remind you that your gifts are sacred. Wrong witnesses demand proof. Right witnesses recognize presence. But even before the right people come, you must become a clear witness to yourself. You must learn to look at your own life without the eyes of those who hurt you. You must stop repeating their misreadings as if they were scripture. You must stop using their rejection as the narrator of your story. Sit with yourself and ask, who was I before their blindness made me doubt? What did I know about my heart before they called it too much? What truth did I abandon because someone else could not see it? This is not easy work, but it is holy work. It is the work of washing your inner mirror. Each time you release a false label, the mirror becomes clearer. Each time you stop defending yourself to someone who refuses to understand, the mirror becomes clearer. Each time you choose peace over approval, the mirror becomes clearer. And slowly, you begin to see yourself not as the rejected one, not as the overlooked one, not as the one who was not enough, but as someone whose worth survived being unseen. There is a kind of light that grows stronger after it stops asking darkness for permission. It becomes calm, steady, mature. It no longer needs to blind others to prove it exists. It simply shines, not loudly, not desperately, not to win, not to punish, not to make anyone regret. It shines because shining is its nature. That is the kind of light Buddhist wisdom leads you back to. A light not built on praise, a light not destroyed by rejection, a light not dependent on the eyes of the wounded, the fearful, the proud, or the blind. A light rooted in awareness, compassion, patience, and truth. So, if some eyes never recognized you, let this be the moment you stop carrying that as evidence against yourself. Their perception was shaped by causes you may never fully know. Their karma, their fear, their ego, their wounds, their craving, their comparison, their blindness, all of these stood between them and the truth of you. You may have been standing right there, open-hearted and sincere, but they were not looking from a place that could receive you clearly. Let that understanding soften the pain. Let it remove the poison from the memory. Let it help you stop rewriting yourself for people who could not read you with clean eyes. You do not need to hate them. You do not need to chase them. You do not need to wait for them to wake up. You only need to wake up from the belief that their blindness means your light was never there. It was there. It is still there. And the more you stop begging clouded eyes to confirm it, the more clearly you will begin to live from it. And once you stop begging clouded eyes to confirm your light, another painful truth begins to rise. It is not only that some people cannot see you clearly, it is that even when they see pieces of your goodness, they still may not have the hands to hold it. They may notice your love, enjoy your loyalty, benefit from your patience, and still fail to treat your heart as something sacred. This is where the wound becomes deeper, because being unseen hurts, but being received carelessly after you gave sincerely can break something quiet inside you. There is a pain that does not come from hate. It comes from giving your heart to closed hands. It comes from bringing your softness to someone who does not know how to protect softness. It comes from offering patience to someone who only uses it as more room to disappoint you. It comes from showing loyalty to someone who enjoys being supported, but does not understand the responsibility of being trusted. And the saddest part is this: many times you do not stop because your love is still hoping their hands will open. This kind of pain is confusing because you are not dealing with total emptiness. If the person gave you nothing at all, maybe you would leave faster. But they give you small moments. A kind word here, a warm memory there, a message that sounds caring, a look that makes you believe there is still something inside them. And because your heart is sincere, you build hope around those small moments. You tell yourself, maybe they are changing, maybe they do care, maybe if I keep loving them, they will finally understand what I have been trying to give. But Buddhist wisdom asks you to look beyond the small moment and see the whole pattern. A drop of water does not make a dry land fertile if the drought continues. A kind sentence does not become love if the behavior keeps causing pain. A person can enjoy your heart without being capable of caring for it. They can receive your effort without being ready to honor it. They can like what you give them and still not have the maturity to give back with respect. This is where many people suffer for years. They confuse being needed with being valued. They confuse being used to their presence with being loved. They confuse someone returning when they are lonely with someone choosing them with care. They confuse the relief of being noticed for a moment with the peace of being truly held. And little by little, they pour their heart into hands that remain closed, hoping that one day the hands will finally open. But closed hands do not become open because you keep bleeding into them. A person who does not have the capacity to receive love with care will not become safe simply because your love is pure. Your loyalty cannot replace their maturity. Your patience cannot create their awareness. Your effort cannot do their inner work. Your tenderness cannot force their heart to become responsible. This is a hard truth to accept because it feels like failure. You may think, if my love were stronger, they would change. If I were more understanding, they would soften. If I were more patient, they would finally treat me better. But this is the trap. You begin to believe that their inability to receive love is caused by your inability to give enough. So you give more, you explain more, you forgive faster, you stretch yourself thinner, and the more you give, the more you lose sight of the simple truth. Love is not supposed to be a one-person offering. In Buddhism, generosity is beautiful, but attachment turns generosity into suffering. Giving from a free heart brings peace. Giving because you are afraid of being abandoned brings pain. Giving because you hope someone will finally see your worth becomes a hidden bargain. You may call it love, but underneath it there is a quiet plea. Please, if I give enough, choose me. Please, if I stay long enough, value me. Please, if I endure enough, prove that I was not foolish for caring. That plea is where the suffering lives. It is not wrong to love. It is not wrong to be loyal. It is not wrong to be patient. These are beautiful qualities, but when you place them in hands that do not know how to hold them, they become sources of pain. The same water that helps a flower grow can become wasted when poured on stone again and again. The water is not the problem. The place you are pouring it matters. There are people who do not know how to receive love because they have only learned how to consume it. They take comfort from your presence, but they do not protect your peace. They take advice from your wisdom, but they do not respect your boundaries. They take forgiveness from your softness, but they do not become more careful with your heart. They take your time, your energy, your concern, your loyalty, and your attention. But when you need something gentle in return, their hands close. This is not always loud cruelty. Sometimes it is quiet carelessness. They forget what matters to you. They dismiss what hurts you. They make promises when emotions are high, then return to the same behavior when life becomes normal. They apologize in words, but not in action. They say they appreciate you, but their choices keep teaching you that your feelings are optional, and because they are not always harsh, you keep questioning your right to feel hurt. You say, maybe I'm asking too much, but are you asking too much, or are you asking the wrong person? You say, maybe I should be more patient, but how long must patience stand where respect never arrives? You say, maybe they are just going through something. But how many times will their struggle become the reason your heart must go without care? Compassion can become dangerous when it has no wisdom beside it. You can understand someone's pain and still admit they are hurting you. You can know their childhood wounded them and still know your soul is not a hospital bed for their unconscious behavior. You can see why they struggle and still refuse to make their struggle the ruler of your life. Buddhist compassion is not blind softness. It is clear, awake, and honest. It does not say, let me disappear so you can remain unchanged. It says, may you be healed, but I will not abandon myself while waiting for your healing. Many sincere people stay too long because they see potential. They see the good parts. They see the wounded child beneath the difficult behavior. They see the rare tenderness. They see who the person could become if they healed, if they matured, if they listened, if they faced themselves. But potential is not the same as presence. A seed may become a tree, but you cannot sit under its shade today. And if you are exhausted, burned by the sun, and thirsty for shelter, you cannot survive on what something might become someday. This does not mean you should hate potential. It means you must stop living on it. Love must be connected to reality, not just possibility. What is this person actually able to give now? How do they treat your heart now? How do they respond when you are hurt now? Do they take responsibility now? Do they show care now? Do they protect what you give now? These questions bring you back from fantasy to truth. Sometimes, closed hands are not closed because they do not know you are offering something valuable. They are closed because opening them would require vulnerability. To receive love properly, a person must be humble. They must admit need. They must allow themselves to be touched. They must become responsible for what has been entrusted to them. They must stop treating connection like a place to take and start treating it like a place to care. Not everyone is ready for that. Some people want love, but they do not want the responsibility of love. They want comfort without accountability. They want loyalty without honesty. They want your presence without your needs. They want the warmth of your heart without the weight of your truth. They want you close enough to soothe them, but quiet enough not to challenge them. And when you begin to ask for care in return, they act as if your needs are a burden. This is one of the clearest signs of closed hands. They welcome what you give, but resist what you need. They enjoy your understanding, but they call you dramatic when you ask to be understood. They depend on your patience, but they become irritated when you ask for consistency. They accept your forgiveness, but they avoid changing the behavior that made forgiveness necessary. They want your love to be endless, but they want your expectations to be small. And if you have a tender heart, you may try to make your needs smaller. You may become proud of how little you ask for. You may say, I do not need much. But be careful. Sometimes I do not need much is not peace. Sometimes it is a wound speaking. Sometimes it means you have learned to survive on emotional crumbs because asking for a full meal once made someone leave, mock you, or make you feel guilty. A person who truly cares about your heart does not require you to become almost needless. They do not make you feel ashamed for wanting reassurance, respect, honesty, tenderness, and effort. They may not be perfect, but they are willing. They are willing to listen. They are willing to learn. They are willing to adjust. They are willing to protect the trust you have placed in them. Closed hands, on the other hand, make every request feel like an attack. There is a quiet exhaustion that comes from loving someone who cannot receive you with care. It is not only emotional tiredness, it reaches the body. You feel heavy. Your mind keeps circling. Your sleep becomes restless. Your chest tightens when you think of them. You feel hope and dread at the same time. You are relieved when they are kind, but afraid of when the kindness will disappear. You are always waiting for the next shift, the next coldness, the next silence, the next excuse. This is not peace. This is attachment mixed with uncertainty. And attachment has a way of making pain feel meaningful. You start believing that because it hurts deeply, it must be love. But pain is not proof of love. Sometimes pain is proof that something in you is holding on to what your spirit is begging you to release. Love may require patience, yes, but it should not require the steady destruction of your self-respect. Buddhist wisdom often returns us to the truth of impermanence. Everything changes. People change. Feelings change. Circumstances change. But impermanence is not an excuse to wait forever in harm. It is not a reason to say, maybe one day they will become careful with me, while your present life is being drained. Impermanence teaches you not to cling to any fixed idea, including the idea that this person must be the one to finally love you well. Sometimes you are not clinging to the person as they are. You are clinging to the person you first believed they were. You are clinging to the beginning when things felt warm. You are clinging to the version of them that appeared before their patterns became clear. You are clinging to a memory, a promise, a possibility, a feeling. But the path of wisdom asks you to bow to what is true now, not what was sweet then. This is painful because the heart does not release all at once. The heart remembers the good. It remembers the laughter, the tenderness, the late conversations, the moment they held you with words, the day they seemed to understand. And those memories become hooks. Every time you try to walk away inside yourself, the memory pulls you back and says, "But what about this?" Yet wisdom responds, "Yes, that was real, but so is this pain, and one beautiful moment cannot erase a pattern that keeps breaking me." You can honor what was good without staying loyal to what is harmful. You can be grateful for a lesson without remaining inside the wound. You can admit someone had beautiful parts and still accept that their hands were not safe for your heart. This is maturity. It is not the childish mind that needs someone to be all good or all bad before it can make a decision. It is the awakened mind that can hold complexity and still choose peace. Some people are not closed in every area of life. They may be generous with money but closed with emotion. They may be funny in public but careless in private. They may be wise in conversation but immature in conflict. They may help strangers but neglect those closest to them. This is why confusion grows. You think, they are capable of being kind, why not with me? But capacity in one area does not always mean capacity in another. Someone can have open hands for the world and closed hands for intimacy. Intimacy requires a different kind of openness. It asks a person to receive another heart without using it, dismissing it, controlling it, or running from it. It asks them to be present when things are not entertaining. It asks them to care when it is inconvenient. It asks them to listen when they feel defensive. It asks them to protect trust when temptation, stress, pride, or fear appears. Many people like the idea of intimacy, but they do not have the discipline for it. So when you keep giving to them, you may not be giving to love. You may be giving to an idea. You may be feeding the dream that one day they will become emotionally present. One day they will understand. One day they will realize. One day they will regret. One day they will soften. But the more you live for one day, the more your actual days pass in quiet sadness. Your life is not a waiting room for someone else's awakening. Your heart is not a training ground where people can keep mishandling love until they decide to mature. Your loyalty is not a rope for someone to pull whenever they feel lonely. Your patience is not an endless road for someone who refuses to walk with awareness. This does not mean you must leave every imperfect person. Everyone is imperfect. You are imperfect too. The question is not, do they make mistakes? The question is, what do they do after they see the mistake? Do they reflect or do they defend? Do they repair or do they repeat? Do they care about the effect of their actions or only about escaping guilt? Do they become more mindful or do they expect your forgiveness to erase their responsibility? A person with open hands may fail, but they return with humility. They do not make your pain feel like an inconvenience. They do not rush you to move on because they are uncomfortable with what they caused. They do not use your kindness as permission to remain careless. They learn the shape of your heart and become more careful with it. Closed hands, however, may apologize only to reopen access, not to deepen awareness. This is why you must learn to watch repair. Words can be beautiful, but repair is visible. Repair sounds like, "I understand why that hurt you." Repair looks like changed behavior. Repair feels like safety slowly returning. Repair does not demand immediate trust. Repair does not punish you for being wounded. Repair does not act as if your pain is the enemy. It treats your pain as a message worthy of respect. If there is no repair, your repeated forgiveness may become a doorway back into the same suffering. Forgiveness is not the same as returning. Forgiveness is not the same as reopening every door. Forgiveness means you stop feeding hatred in your own heart. It does not mean you keep giving your heart to hands that keep dropping it. You can forgive someone and still decide that your closeness is no longer wise. This is where many people misunderstand spiritual teachings. They think being spiritual means staying soft, no matter how they are treated. They think compassion means giving unlimited chances. They think non-judgment means ignoring harmful patterns. They think patience means waiting without limit. But Buddhism is not a path of foolish endurance. It is a path of awakening. Awakening means seeing causes and effects clearly. If a connection keeps creating suffering, you do not call it sacred just because you have suffered long inside it. There is no holiness in abandoning yourself. There is no enlightenment in begging for care from someone who keeps proving they cannot offer it. There is no wisdom in pouring your life force into a place that returns confusion. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is stop. Stop explaining. Stop chasing. Stop donating your peace to someone else's immaturity. Stop handing your heart to closed hands and calling your pain devotion. This stopping may feel cruel at first because you are used to measuring your goodness by how much you can endure. But endurance is not always virtue. Sometimes endurance is fear. Sometimes it is attachment. Sometimes it is the old belief that if you suffer beautifully enough, someone will finally realize your value. But love should not require you to become a quiet martyr. Ask yourself this with honesty. When you give to this person, do you feel expanded or emptied? Do you feel peaceful or anxious? Do you feel respected or consumed? Do you feel closer to yourself or farther away? Do you give because your heart is free or because your fear is afraid to lose them? The answer may show you whether your giving is love or attachment. When giving comes from love, there is warmth, but there is also dignity. You do not feel erased. You do not feel secretly resentful. You do not feel desperate for the person to return something so you can finally breathe. When giving comes from attachment, your offering carries hidden fear. You give, then wait. You give, then check. You give, then hope. You give, then feel wounded when it is not received the way your heart needed. This does not mean you are bad. It means you are hungry for mutual care, and there is nothing wrong with wanting mutual care. Do not let anyone make you feel guilty for wanting the love you give to be held with respect. You are not selfish for wanting effort. You are not weak for wanting tenderness. You are not demanding because you want consistency. You are not unspiritual because you feel pain when your heart is treated casually. Even the softest heart needs a safe place to rest. Buddhist wisdom would not tell you to kill your longing. It would teach you to understand it. Longing becomes suffering when it attaches itself to someone who cannot meet it. Longing becomes wisdom when it teaches you what your soul needs and guides you toward healthier places. Your need for love is not the enemy. Your need to receive care is not shameful. The suffering begins when you keep asking the emotionally unavailable to become the source of what they have never cultivated. Some people cannot receive your loyalty because loyalty scares them. They are used to unstable love, so steady love feels unfamiliar. Some cannot receive your effort because effort makes them feel responsible. Some cannot receive your patience because they mistake patience for weakness. Some cannot receive your honesty because honesty requires them to stop hiding. Some cannot receive your softness because they only know how to survive through hardness. None of this makes your gifts worthless. It means those gifts require a different kind of receiver. A precious gift placed in careless hands is not less precious. A sacred cup dropped by someone clumsy is not less sacred. A song ignored by someone who only loves noise is not less beautiful. Your heart does not lose value because someone mishandled it, but your wisdom must grow from the experience. The lesson is not to stop loving. The lesson is to stop offering your deepest love where there is no capacity to honor it. Capacity matters. This one word can save you years of pain. Not everyone has the capacity for your heart. Not everyone has the capacity for your depth. Not everyone has the capacity for honest communication. Not everyone has the capacity for steady love. Not everyone has the capacity to receive loyalty without exploiting it. When you ignore capacity, you begin to suffer from expectations reality cannot support. You may be asking for a river from someone who only carries a cup. You may be asking for a home from someone who has not built one inside themselves. You may be asking for careful hands from someone who has never learned gentleness. Then, when they fail, you call it rejection. But sometimes it is not rejection. Sometimes it is limitation. Their limitation still hurts, but it should not become your identity. Seeing limitation clearly allows you to grieve without worshipping the pain. You can say, "They could not meet me there." You can say, "They did not have what I needed." You can say, "They may have cared in their way, but their way still wounded me." You can say, "I wanted more from them than they had the awareness to give." These sentences are simple, but they carry freedom. Because once you stop arguing with their capacity, you stop trying to turn stone into bread. You stop trying to teach closed hands how to hold your heart by giving them more pieces of it. You stop trying to prove that your love deserves care. You stop negotiating with neglect. You stop making excuses for the same wound. You begin to understand that your heart needs more than occasional warmth. It needs a place where care is not a rare event. And yes, this may bring loneliness for a time. When you stop giving to closed hands, your days may become quieter. The phone may not light up as much. The familiar chase may disappear. You may feel the empty space where your effort used to go. But that empty space is not punishment. It is recovery. It is the room where your energy returns. It is the silence where you begin to hear yourself again. At first, Peace may feel like loss because chaos was taking up so much space. You may wonder if you made a mistake simply because your heart misses the person. But missing someone does not always mean you should return. Sometimes it means your attachment is still unwinding. Sometimes it means your body is detoxing from uncertainty. Sometimes it means love was real, but the place you put it was not safe. Let yourself miss them without handing your heart back. Let yourself grieve without rewriting the truth. Let yourself remember the good without forgetting the cost. This is how healing becomes honest. You do not need to demonize them to move forward. You only need to stop betraying yourself to keep them close. The pain of offering your heart to closed hands becomes a teacher when you listen carefully. It teaches you that love must be placed with discernment. It teaches you that loyalty without reciprocity becomes exhaustion. It teaches you that patience without boundaries becomes self-harm in slow motion. It teaches you that effort without mutual effort becomes imbalance. It teaches you that your heart is not meant to survive only on hope. Hope is beautiful when it walks beside reality. Hope becomes dangerous when it replaces reality. If someone is showing you again and again that they cannot receive you with care, hope should not be used to silence what you know. Hope should not become a blindfold. Hope should not keep you kneeling before closed hands, whispering, "Maybe this time." There is a different kind of hope available to you. Not the hope that they will finally change before you break. Not the hope that they will return and become everything you needed. Not the hope that your suffering will one day be rewarded by their awakening. A cleaner hope. The hope that you can return to yourself. The hope that you can love again with wisdom. The hope that your heart can remain tender, but no longer careless with itself. The hope that you can choose hands that are open, steady, and kind. Open hands feel different. They do not make you beg for basic care. They do not punish your honesty. They do not treat your loyalty as something ordinary. They do not make your patience carry the whole connection. They receive your heart with attention. They may not always know exactly what to do, but they want to learn. They do not hold you perfectly, but they hold you sincerely. And sincerity brings a peace that mixed signals can never give. When you experience open hands, you realize how much of your old suffering was not love, but strain. You realize love does not have to feel like pulling teeth from a closed mouth. It does not have to feel like standing outside a locked house with your heart in your hands. It does not have to feel like explaining your value to someone who keeps spending your tenderness carelessly. Love can feel safe. Love can feel calm. Love can feel mutual. Love can feel like both people are awake enough to care. Until that kind of care arrives, become open hands for yourself. Hold your own heart with the gentleness you kept offering others. Listen to the pain you kept minimizing. Protect the needs you kept shrinking. Speak to yourself with the tenderness you wished they had used. Become the safe place you kept searching for in unsafe people. This is not a replacement for human connection. It is the foundation that prevents you from begging for connection at any cost. Each time you choose yourself, your hands open wider toward your own life. You stop throwing your energy into places that cannot return life to you. You stop letting careless people train you to doubt your beauty. You stop treating your heart like something cheap just because someone else did. You begin to move differently, not hardened, not bitter, not closed to love, just awake. And when you are awake, you can still give, but you no longer give blindly. You can still be loyal, but not to those who keep betraying your peace. You can still be patient, but not with patterns that have no intention of changing. You can still love deeply, but you no longer confuse depth with suffering. You can still forgive, but you no longer use forgiveness as a key to reopen every door that harmed you. This is how your heart becomes wise without becoming cold. It learns to ask, can this person hold what I am offering? It learns to notice whether care is mutual. It learns to respect the quiet signs of danger. It learns that not every open feeling needs an open door. It learns that love is sacred, and sacred things must not be placed just anywhere. So if you have spent years offering your heart to closed hands, do not shame yourself. You were trying to love. You were trying to be faithful. You were trying to believe in goodness. You were trying to see the best in someone. There is beauty in that. But now, let wisdom stand beside that beauty. Let awareness guide what love alone could not protect. Let your tenderness grow eyes. You do not have to keep proving that your heart is worthy of care. The right hands will not need endless proof. You do not have to keep pouring yourself into someone who only notices when you stop. You do not have to keep accepting carelessness because you understand their wounds. You do not have to keep waiting for closed hands to become a home. Your heart is not too much. Your loyalty is not foolish. Your patience is not worthless. Your effort was not meaningless. But those gifts were never meant to be wasted in places that made you feel empty. They were meant to flow where they could be honored, returned, and allowed to grow into peace. And this is the deeper lesson. The pain was not only that they did not hold your heart. The pain was that you kept handing it back after every fall, hoping the next time would be different. Healing begins when you stop offering your most sacred parts to those who have shown you they cannot receive them with care. Not because you hate them, but because you finally understand that your heart deserves hands that are open. So breathe and let this truth enter gently. You are allowed to take your heart back. You are allowed to stop giving where giving has become suffering. You are allowed to love people from a distance when closeness keeps wounding you. You are allowed to protect the tenderness that life has not yet destroyed. You are allowed to say, my heart is sacred, and I will no longer place it where it cannot be held. That is not rejection of them. That is a return to yourself. That is not rejection of them. That is a return to yourself. And once you begin to take your heart back from closed hands, another hidden wound starts to reveal itself. You begin to notice that the deepest pain was not only that they failed to value you. The deepest pain was that somewhere along the way, you started believing their failure meant something about you. You mistook their limitation for your identity. You turned their inability to love with care into proof that you were difficult to love. There is a quiet lie that enters the heart after rejection. It does not always shout. It whispers. It says, if they could not value me, maybe I am not valuable. If they could walk away, maybe I was easy to leave. If they ignored me, maybe I was not worth attention. If they chose someone else, maybe something is missing in me. And because pain makes the mind search for answers quickly, you may accept that lie before wisdom has a chance to speak. But listen closely. Someone's inability to value you is not proof that you lack value. A person can fail to recognize gold and still be holding gold. A person can reject clean water because they are used to drinking poison. A person can stand before peace and choose chaos because chaos feels familiar. Their choice reveals their condition, their awareness, their hunger, their fear, their level of maturity. It does not automatically reveal your worth. This is where many people suffer unnecessarily. They do not only experience the loss of someone's affection, they build a whole identity around it. One person does not call, and suddenly they feel unwanted by life itself. One person does not choose them, and suddenly they feel unchoosable. One person does not appreciate their love, and suddenly they question whether their love has any beauty at all. The wound becomes bigger than the event because the mind turns it into a story. Buddhist wisdom teaches that the mind does not simply experience life, it interprets life. And many times, suffering grows from the interpretation, not only from the event. The event may be, this person did not value me. But the mind adds, that means I have no value. The event may be, this person could not love me well. But the mind adds, that means I am hard to love. The event may be, this person walked away. But the mind adds, that means everyone will leave. This added meaning becomes the arrow that keeps hurting long after the first pain. There is a teaching often described as the first arrow and the second arrow. The first arrow is the pain life brings: rejection, disappointment, loss, disrespect, silence. These things hurt. You are human, so they will hurt. But the second arrow is the pain the mind creates afterward. It is the meaning you attach. It is the self-blame. It is the shame. It is the belief that another person's blindness has become the final truth about you. The first arrow may be unavoidable, but the second arrow is where awareness can begin to free you. When someone does not value you, the first arrow says, this hurts. The second arrow says, I am worthless. The first arrow says, they did not choose me. The second arrow says, I will never be chosen. The first arrow says, they did not see my heart. The second arrow says, maybe my heart is not worth seeing. And if you do not notice the second arrow, you may spend years trying to heal a wound that your own interpretation keeps reopening. This does not mean your pain is fake. It means your pain deserves truth, not more poison. Your heart is allowed to hurt without turning against itself. You are allowed to grieve without making grief a mirror of your value. You are allowed to miss someone without deciding their absence proves you were not enough. You are allowed to feel the sting of being dismissed without building a home inside the shame. The mind often personalizes what belongs to another person. This is one of its habits. If someone is cold, you ask, what did I do? If someone is distant, you ask, what is wrong with me? If someone is careless, you ask, why was I not worth more effort? But sometimes their coldness is their pattern. Their distance is their defense. Their carelessness is their lack of mindfulness. Their inability to value you is not a careful measurement of your soul. It is an expression of what they can or cannot hold. A cup that is cracked cannot carry water well. That does not mean the water is bad. A person with a closed heart cannot hold love well. That does not mean the love is worthless. A mirror covered in dust cannot reflect your face clearly. That does not mean your face is unclear. The problem is not always the thing being offered. Sometimes the problem is the vessel receiving it. But when you are attached, you stop seeing the vessel. You only see yourself through the result. You think, if my love spilled, maybe my love was not good enough. You do not stop to ask, was this person capable of holding it? You think, if my kindness was not returned, maybe my kindness was too much. You do not stop to ask, was this person trained to receive kindness with gratitude? You think, if my loyalty was not protected, maybe my loyalty had no meaning. You do not stop to ask, was this person mature enough to honor loyalty? This is why awareness is so important. Awareness separates what happened from what you are. It teaches you to say, they did not value me, without adding, therefore I have no value. It teaches you to say, they could not love me with care, without adding, therefore I am unlovable. It teaches you to say, they chose differently, without adding, therefore I was not enough. This separation is not denial. It is emotional wisdom. Think of how many beautiful things are undervalued every day. A wise book can sit unread on a shelf. A kind person can be ignored in a room full of shallow noise. A loyal friend can be overlooked by someone chasing excitement. A peaceful home can be rejected by someone addicted to conflict. A sincere heart can be mishandled by someone who only understands control. None of these things lose their value because the wrong person failed to appreciate them. The value of something is not created by the one who notices it. Recognition can honor value, but it does not create it. A diamond does not become a stone because a child throws it away. A song does not become meaningless because someone without ears for its beauty walks out of the room. A gentle soul does not become worthless because someone restless could not sit long enough to understand it. Your worth existed before their opinion. It existed before their attention. It existed before their rejection. It existed before they knew your name. This is important because attachment makes it feel as if your value began when they wanted you and ended when they changed. But no person has that power unless your mind hands it to them. They may affect your feelings. They may hurt your heart. They may disappoint your hopes. But they do not own the truth of who you are. Buddhist wisdom points us toward non-self, not to make us feel empty, but to free us from clinging to false identities. You are not the story someone told about you. You are not the role someone gave you. You are not the rejection you experienced. You are not the silence someone left behind. You are not the version of you that exists in the mind of someone who never understood you. When you cling to those identities, you suffer because you are trying to live inside a shape that was never your true nature. Someone may call you too sensitive because they do not want to face the harm they caused. Someone may call you needy because they are uncomfortable with emotional responsibility. Someone may call you difficult because you stopped accepting disrespect quietly. Someone may call you dramatic because your truth interrupts their comfort. If you believe every label, you will spend your life shrinking under names that were never given by wisdom. You must learn to ask, who is naming me? This question can save your spirit. Is the person naming you speaking from love, clarity, humility, and self-awareness? Or are they speaking from defensiveness, guilt, fear, pride, or avoidance? A label from a clear heart may help you grow. A label from a confused heart may only be a shield they use to avoid seeing themselves. Not every word spoken about you deserves to enter you. Some words should be heard, examined, and released. Some words should be treated like smoke, visible for a moment, but not something you build your life around. Some words are not truth. They are emotional weather passing through another person's troubled mind. This does not mean you refuse all correction. That would be ego. If someone points out a real pattern in you with care, listen. If someone tells you where you have caused harm, pause. If someone shows you a blind spot, reflect. Buddhist wisdom is not about protecting a false image of yourself. It is about seeing clearly. But seeing clearly also means not accepting blame that belongs elsewhere. Humility and self-abandonment are not the same. Humility says, I can learn. Self-abandonment says, everything must be my fault. Humility says, I may have areas to grow. Self-abandonment says, if they hurt me, I must have deserved it. Humility opens the heart. Self-abandonment breaks it. You need humility to become wiser, but you need self-respect to avoid carrying burdens that do not belong to you. When someone cannot value you, there may be many causes. They may be emotionally immature. They may be attached to a fantasy that you do not fit. They may value image more than sincerity. They may fear intimacy. They may be distracted by their own cravings. They may be repeating old patterns. They may not know how to receive stable love. They may be lost in ego. They may simply not be aligned with you. None of these require you to conclude, I am worthless. But the wounded mind wants one clear answer, and often the easiest answer is self-blame. Self-blame creates the illusion of control. If you believe it was all your fault, then you can believe that if you change enough, you will never feel that pain again. This is why people sometimes cling to shame. Shame feels terrible, but it gives the mind a false sense of power. It says, if I can fix myself completely, No one will reject me again. But life does not work that way. You can become wiser, kinder, more mature, more grounded, and still be rejected by someone who cannot meet you. You can communicate better and still be misunderstood by someone committed to misunderstanding. You can love sincerely and still be unchosen by someone chasing something else. You can heal deeply and still not be everyone's preference. Growth protects your peace, but it does not guarantee universal approval. This is another truth that frees you. Being valuable does not mean being chosen by everyone. A person may not choose you because of timing, fear, incompatibility, immaturity, preference, confusion, or their own path. Rejection does not always mean judgment. Sometimes it means mismatch. Sometimes it means their hands are full of things you cannot see. Sometimes it means life is preventing you from building a home where your spirit would have slowly disappeared. But when your self-worth is wounded, every no feels like a final sentence. Every silence becomes proof. Every ending becomes a verdict. You begin collecting painful moments and using them as evidence against yourself. You forget all the times you were kind, all the times you were brave, all the times you showed up, all the times you loved honestly. The mind under pain becomes selective. It remembers the wound and forgets the wholeness. This is why you must practice remembering correctly, not remembering through fantasy and not remembering through shame. Remember with balance. Yes, they did not value you. Yes, that hurt. Yes, maybe you made mistakes too. Yes, maybe the connection was not healthy. But also remember this: you had a heart, you tried, you cared, you gave what you knew how to give. You were learning, you were human. Their inability to honor that does not erase it. There is a difference between regret and shame. Regret says, I see what I would do differently now. Shame says, I am bad because it happened. Regret can teach you. Shame traps you. Regret helps you choose better next time. Shame makes you feel too broken to try again. Let regret become wisdom, but do not let shame become your identity. If you look back and see that you stayed too long, do not use that as another weapon against yourself. Staying too long often means you were hoping, attached, afraid, loyal, or still learning your worth. It means you did not yet know how to leave without feeling guilty. It means some part of you believed love had to be proven through endurance. Now you know more. Let that knowledge become compassion, not punishment. The mind turns another person's limitation into a personal wound when it forgets interdependence. In Buddhist thought, everything arises from causes and conditions. A person's response to you is not created by you alone. It is shaped by their history, their habits, their emotional tools, their fears, their desires, their family patterns, their culture, their level of mindfulness, their current suffering, and countless unseen conditions. You are part of the meeting, but you are not the whole universe behind their behavior. This understanding does not excuse harm. It simply makes the picture larger. Instead of saying, they did this because I am not enough, you begin to see, this action came from many conditions, many of which existed before I arrived. That view softens the personal wound. It helps you stop carrying the full weight of someone else's limitation on your own back. A person's inability to value you may have begun long before you. They may have learned to dismiss tenderness in childhood. They may have learned that emotions are dangerous. They may have learned to chase people who hurt them and ignore people who care. They may have learned that control is safer than vulnerability. They may have learned to measure value by status, beauty, money, or convenience. Then you entered their life with your own heart, and their old conditioning met your presence. Their reaction may have more to do with that conditioning than with your essence. When you understand this, you can stop turning every wound into a mirror. You can say, this hurt me, but it is not all about me. That sentence is powerful. It does not deny your pain. It simply removes the false identity attached to it. It gives the pain back its proper size. It stops it from becoming a life sentence. Another reason you may mistake their limitation for your lack of value is because you wanted them to be the one. You wanted their love to mean something. You wanted their recognition to heal something old. You wanted their choice to confirm a story your heart deeply needed. I am finally seen. I am finally safe. I am finally enough. So when they failed, the collapse felt bigger than the relationship. It felt like the collapse of hope itself. But one person cannot be the source of your final worth. That is too much power for any human being. Even a loving person should not carry the burden of defining your existence. When your worth depends on one person's response, you become emotionally enslaved to their moods, their limits, their confusion, and their choices. Buddhist wisdom invites you to return your worth to a deeper place, not to pride, not to ego, but to inner knowing. Inner knowing is quiet. It does not scream, "I am better than them." It simply says, "I am not erased because someone could not value me." It says, "I can learn from this without becoming this." It says, "I can grieve without becoming worthless." It says, "Their eyes were limited, but my truth remains." This kind of knowing is not arrogance, it is stability. You build this stability through practice, not through one inspiring thought, but through daily remembering. When the mind says, "They did not value me because I am not enough," you pause and answer, "That is one possible story, but it is not the truth I will live by." When the mind says, "If I mattered, they would have stayed," you answer, "People leave for many reasons, and their leaving does not measure my soul." When the mind says, "Maybe I was too much," you answer, "I may have needs, feelings, and depth, but those things do not make me unworthy." This is not pretending. This is training the mind. The untrained mind runs toward old pain. It repeats the harshest interpretation because harshness feels familiar. If you have spent years doubting yourself, self-blame may feel more believable than self-compassion. But believable does not always mean true. Sometimes it only means repeated. You must stop letting repetition become reality. Just because a thought returns does not mean it is wise. Just because shame feels familiar does not mean it is honest. Just because rejection triggered an old belief does not mean the belief deserves your loyalty. In meditation, thoughts arise and pass. You do not have to bow to every one of them. You can see a thought and say, "This is pain speaking. This is fear speaking. This is the old wound speaking. I do not have to become it." There is a sacred pause between someone's action and your conclusion about yourself. In that pause, freedom lives. Someone ignores you. Pause. Do not immediately become unwanted. Someone fails to appreciate you. Pause. Do not immediately become worthless. Someone chooses someone else. Pause. Do not immediately become unlovable. The pause is where wisdom enters before the wound writes the story. Most people lose themselves because they skip the pause. They go straight from pain to identity. They left, so I am abandoned. They lied, so I am foolish. They did not choose me, so I am not enough. But the awakened heart learns to slow down. It allows pain to be pain without turning it into self-hatred. It allows disappointment to be disappointment without turning it into destiny. You are allowed to separate facts from meanings. The fact may be that they did not call. The meaning is not automatically that you are forgettable. The fact may be that they did not return your effort. The meaning is not automatically that your effort had no value. The fact may be that they could not love you well. The meaning is not automatically that you are hard to love. This separation is how you protect your inner world. Some people will only value you when you stop needing their valuation because your energy changes. When you are desperate to be valued, you may overgive, over-explain, and overstay. You may place yourself beneath their opinion. But when you know your worth, you stop negotiating with emotional poverty. You stop accepting confusion as a home. You stop handing people the pen to write your identity. And sometimes only then do they realize what they failed to honor. But by then, your goal is no longer to be seen by them. Your goal is to remain true to yourself. This is important because healing is not about making them regret. It is not about becoming so powerful that they come back broken. It is not about proving they were wrong through success, beauty, silence, or distance. That is still attachment wearing a new outfit. True healing is quieter. It is when their opinion no longer sits at the center of your chest. It is when you can remember them without collapsing. It is when you no longer need their failure to become your evidence or their regret to become your reward. To separate their blindness from your truth, you must become honest about what they actually had the capacity to see. Were they emotionally present enough to value your heart? Were they humble enough to receive your truth? Were they mature enough to respect your boundaries? Were they aware enough to recognize loyalty? Were they calm enough to appreciate peace? Were they healed enough to stop confusing love with control, fear, or convenience? If the answer is no, then why are you using their response as the highest court of your worth? Why let someone with limited vision give the final judgment on something they never fully saw? This is like asking a person standing in darkness to describe the colors of a painting. Their answer may be sincere, but it will still be incomplete. Your truth must be known from a deeper place. It must be known through your actions, your intentions, your growth, your compassion, your courage, your willingness to learn, your ability to love, your desire to live more honestly. You are not perfect, and your worth does not require perfection. This is another lie people carry. They think they can only believe in their value if they have no flaws. But value and flaw can exist together. You can be growing and still be worthy. You can be healing and still be worthy. You can have made mistakes and still be worthy of care. If someone used your mistakes as a reason to erase all your goodness, that shows imbalance. A mindful person can address harm without denying humanity. A compassionate person can say, "This hurt me," without saying, "You are nothing." But immature people often see in extremes. When they are pleased, you are wonderful. When they are upset, you are worthless. If you live under that kind of gaze, your self-image will keep rising and falling like a leaf in the wind. You need to step out of that wind. You need a self-worth that is not built from emotional weather. Praise comes, praise goes. Attention comes, attention goes. People understand, people misunderstand. Some stay, some leave. Some value you, some cannot. If your worth changes with every movement around you, you will never rest. Buddhist wisdom points you toward the still point inside, the place that watches all changing things without becoming each one. This still point is not numbness. It feels, it grieves, it loves, it learns, but it does not collapse into every experience. It says, "This is painful, but I am more than this pain." It says, "This person did not value me, but I will not turn their limitation into my identity." It says, "I can be rejected and still remain whole." This is the beginning of emotional freedom. You may need to repeat this truth many times before it feels real. That is okay. Deep wounds do not always release because of one sentence. They release through repeated seeing. Each time the old thought returns, meet it with patience. Each time shame rises, do not attack yourself for feeling it. Place awareness around it. Say, "This is the part of me that learned to blame itself. This is the part of me that thinks rejection means danger. This is the part of me that wants to make sense of pain by becoming the problem." Then breathe. Let the thought pass without building a temple for it. Over time, you begin to notice something. Their inability to value you may still hurt, but it no longer defines you. You stop replaying the story as proof of your lack. You begin to see it as a meeting between your heart and their limitation. You begin to recover the parts of yourself you handed over to their opinion. You begin to feel dignity returning, not loud, not dramatic, but steady. Then one day, the question changes. It is no longer, "Why was I not enough for them?" It becomes, "Why did I believe someone with such limited capacity could measure all of me?" It becomes, "What part of me needed their approval so badly that I forgot my own truth?" It becomes, "How can I love myself more wisely now?" These questions do not wound you, they awaken you. This awakening is gentle but powerful. You stop confusing someone's inability with your absence of value. You stop letting another person's emotional poverty make you feel poor. You stop standing before closed eyes and calling yourself invisible. You stop letting a careless heart become the judge of your sacredness. You begin to understand that value can be present even where recognition is missing. A flower blooming in an empty field is still a flower. A star hidden behind clouds is still shining. A kind heart ignored by a restless person is still kind. A loyal soul unappreciated by an immature person is still loyal. Your worth does not become less true because it was not received properly. The receiver failed to receive. That is different from you failing to be worthy. Let this difference settle deeply. Their blindness is not your truth. Their limitation is not your identity. Their neglect is not your name. Their rejection is not your destiny. Their inability to love you well is not proof that you are difficult to love. It is proof that love requires capacity, and not everyone has cultivated it. So take back the meaning, take back the story, take back the authority you gave to someone who could not see clearly. Let their response return to them. Let your truth return to you. Do not carry both. You were never meant to carry the wound and the false blame. The wound was heavy enough, and as you move forward, do not ask, "How can I become valuable enough so no one ever fails to value me again?" Ask a wiser question. How can I remain connected to my value even when others fail to see it? That is where peace begins. Not in controlling every eye, not in winning every heart, not in becoming impossible to reject. Peace begins when your worth no longer waits outside yourself, trembling in someone else's hands. You are allowed to be unchosen and still be worthy. You are allowed to be misunderstood and still be true. You are allowed to be unappreciated and still be full of gifts. You are allowed to be left and still belong to yourself. You are allowed to grieve what happened without agreeing with the lie that it happened because you were not enough. This is the lesson your heart must learn now. Someone may fail to value you because they are limited, distracted, wounded, immature, fearful, or blind. But their failure is not your essence. Do not turn their smallness into your shame. Do not turn their lack of capacity into your lack of worth. Do not make a home inside the opinion of someone who never had the eyes to see you clearly. You are not the absence they made you feel. You are not the silence they left you in. You are not the care they failed to give. You are not the value they failed to recognize. You are the one who is learning, slowly and bravely, to separate their blindness from your truth. And once you can do that, rejection no longer has the same power. It may still hurt, but it no longer names you. And once rejection no longer has the power to name you, another question begins to rise from a deeper place. If their blindness was not your truth, why did you keep choosing people with the same kind of blindness? Why did your heart keep walking toward familiar coldness, familiar distance, familiar uncertainty, hoping that this time the ending would be different? This is where the path becomes more honest, because healing is not only about seeing who failed to value you, It is also about seeing why your soul kept returning to the same kind of person, asking for a different answer. There is a strange pain in realizing you have met the same wound in many different faces. The names changed, the voices changed, the stories changed, but the feeling stayed the same. You felt unseen again. You felt like you had to prove yourself again. You felt like you were waiting outside someone's heart again, hoping they would finally open the door. And the most painful part is not just that they were unavailable. It is that something inside you recognized their unavailability and still called it love. This is not because you are foolish. This is not because you enjoy pain. This is not because you are weak. It is because the mind often returns to what is familiar before it returns to what is healthy. Familiar pain can feel safer than unfamiliar peace because at least the old pain has a map. You know how to wait. You know how to overgive. You know how to read silence. You know how to blame yourself. You know how to work for approval. But when someone simply loves you with ease, respect, and consistency, a wounded part of you may not know what to do with that. The heart does not only seek love. Sometimes it seeks a chance to repair the first place love felt broken. This is why you may keep feeling drawn to people who resemble those who first made you feel unseen. Not always in obvious ways. They may not look like them. They may not speak like them. They may not live the same kind of life. But their emotional effect feels familiar. They make you wait for warmth. They make you earn attention. They make you wonder where you stand. They make you feel like your worth depends on becoming more pleasing, more useful, more patient, more impressive, or less needy. And because that feeling is familiar, the nervous system mistakes it for connection. The body says, "I know this place." But knowing a place does not mean that place is home. A prison can become familiar. A storm can become familiar. Hunger can become familiar. Waiting can become familiar. The fact that your heart recognizes someone does not always mean they are right for you. Sometimes it means they match a wound you have not yet healed. Buddhist wisdom teaches that much of our suffering comes from unconscious patterns. We do not only live from what is happening now, we live from old impressions, old cravings, old fears, old attachments, and old beliefs. These impressions sit quietly beneath the surface and guide our choices before we even understand what is happening. You think you are choosing freely, but sometimes an old wound is choosing for you. An old wound may say, "Choose the one who is hard to reach, because if they finally choose you, you will feel healed." An old wound may say, "Choose the one who makes you anxious, because calm love does not feel real." An old wound may say, "Choose the one who withholds affection, because winning them will prove you are worthy." An old wound may say, "Choose the person who reminds you of the first place you were ignored, because maybe this time you can make the story end differently." This is one of the deepest traps of the heart. You are not only trying to be loved by the person in front of you, you are trying to be chosen by every person who did not choose you before. You are trying to make the unavailable person become available so the past will finally feel corrected. You are trying to make the cold person become warm so the child inside you can finally rest. You are trying to make the distant person come close so the old ache can finally stop asking, "Why was I not enough?" But the past cannot be healed by repeating it with a new person. A wound does not close because someone with the same emotional pattern finally treats you differently. Even if they do choose you for a while, the deeper healing still has to happen inside you. Otherwise, you will remain dependent on their behavior to feel whole. You will feel safe only when they are kind, loved only when they are present, valuable only when they approve. That is not freedom. That is your self-worth, living on a string tied to someone else's mood. This is why the same type of person can become addictive. They do not give steady peace, but they give emotional highs and lows. When they are cold, you feel panic. When they return, you feel relief. When they ignore you, you feel small. When they praise you, you feel alive. This cycle can feel intense, and intensity can be mistaken for depth. But not all deep feelings are love. Sometimes they are the body reacting to uncertainty. Sometimes they are old fear dressed as passion. Sometimes they are attachment feeding on the hope of finally being chosen. A peaceful connection may not create the same rush because it does not threaten your sense of safety. It does not make you chase. It does not make you wonder if you matter. It does not activate the old wound in the same way. And if your heart has been trained by inconsistency, peace may feel unfamiliar, even suspicious. You may find yourself saying, something is missing, but what is missing may not be love. What is missing may be fear. The mind can confuse anxiety with chemistry. It can confuse distance with mystery. It can confuse emotional unavailability with strength. It can confuse someone's hard-to-get nature with value. It can think, if this person is difficult to win, then winning them must mean I am special. But this is how suffering hides inside desire. The person becomes a prize, not because they love well, but because they are difficult to receive love from. Their rejection becomes a challenge. Their inconsistency becomes a test. Their attention becomes a reward. Buddhist wisdom would ask you to look with calm honesty. Is this person truly right for your peace, or are they simply familiar to your wound? Do they bring out your wisdom, or do they awaken your fear? Do you feel more yourself around them, or do you become a smaller, more anxious version of yourself? Do you love who they are, or are you attached to who you might become if they finally choose you? That last question matters. Sometimes you do not want the person as much as you want the version of yourself you think their approval will create. You think, if they choose me, I will finally feel beautiful. I will finally feel worthy. I will finally feel powerful. I will finally feel healed. So the person becomes a doorway to an identity you are hungry for. But if your worth depends on entering through their door, then they become the guard of your inner freedom. You may keep returning to the same type of person because your heart is trying to win a case that began long before them. Maybe someone important in your life made you feel invisible. Maybe love felt conditional. Maybe praise was rare. Maybe attention had to be earned through silence, achievement, obedience, usefulness, or emotional control. Maybe you learned early that being loved meant working hard to become acceptable. So now, when someone withholds care, your old training wakes up and says, work harder. You do not simply walk away, because part of you thinks the distance is an invitation to prove yourself. If they are cold, you become warmer. If they are uncertain, you become more loyal. If they give little, you give more. If they pull away, you move closer. If they do not value you, you try to become more valuable in their eyes. This is not love in its purest form. This is old conditioning trying to survive. The child in you may still believe that love is earned by becoming easier to love. So when an unavailable person appears, that child recognizes the assignment. Be good, be patient. Do not ask for too much. Do not be too emotional. Do not complain. Understand them. Give them time. Prove your loyalty. Stay through discomfort. Maybe then they will finally choose you. Maybe then the old story will change. But you are not a child now. You do not have to keep proving your right to receive warmth. You do not have to keep standing before people who make love feel like a test. You do not have to keep repeating the first wound just because your nervous system learned its rhythm. The pattern may be old, but your awareness can be new. Awareness is the moment you stop calling every familiar feeling destiny. It is the moment you say, this feels known, but it may not be healthy. It is the moment you notice the attraction before you obey it. It is the moment you feel the pull toward someone emotionally distant and pause instead of running after them. It is the moment you ask, what part of me is being activated right now? Is this my wisdom choosing or my wound reaching? This pause is powerful because patterns feed on speed. The old self reacts quickly. It sends the message. It explains again. It forgives before the pain has even been understood. It returns before anything has changed. It chooses the same energy because it feels urgent. But healing requires slowing down. When you slow down, you make space for wisdom to enter. You begin to see what you used to repeat blindly. The same type of person often arrives with different packaging. One may appear charming and intense. Another may appear quiet and wounded. Another may appear successful but emotionally distant. Another may appear spiritual but unable to be accountable. Another may appear kind in public but avoidant in private. If you only look at the packaging, you may miss the pattern. So you must learn to look at the effect. How do they make your heart behave? Do you become calm or restless? Secure or desperate? Honest or edited? Open or afraid? Your body often recognizes the pattern before your mind admits it. The tightness in your chest, the urge to prove, the fear of asking a simple question, the need to check for signs, the sudden hunger for their approval, the way your mood rises and falls with their attention. These are not random reactions. They are messages. They are your inner life saying, "We have been here before." Do not ignore that message. Do not cover it with fantasy. Do not say, "But this person is different," while your body is showing you the same wound. Different details do not always mean different energy. A new face can carry an old pattern. A new relationship can repeat an old lesson. A new hope can lead back to an old ache if awareness is missing. This does not mean you must become suspicious of everyone. It means you must become honest with yourself. Healing is not about closing your heart. It is about opening your eyes. It is about learning to recognize the difference between a soul connection and a wound connection. A soul connection brings truth, growth, calm, respect, and mutual care. A wound connection brings obsession, anxiety, performance, and the old hunger to be finally chosen by someone who keeps making you feel unsure. A wound connection often feels strong because it touches something unfinished. It does not simply say, "I like this person." It says, "I need this person to choose me so I can feel okay." That need creates intensity. You may think about them constantly, not because the connection is healthy, but because your nervous system is trying to solve the uncertainty. The mind hates an open loop, so it keeps returning to the person, trying to get an answer that will finally close the pain. But some people are not answers. Some people are reminders. They remind you of where you still seek approval. They remind you of where you still abandon yourself. They remind you of the kind of love you were trained to chase. They remind you of the places inside you that still believe being chosen by the hard-to-reach person will finally make you whole. Their role is not always to stay. Sometimes their role is to reveal the pattern. When you see the pattern, do not shame yourself. Shame will only push you back into unconsciousness. You may say, "Why do I keep doing this? Why did I not learn? Why am I attracted to the same pain?" But self-attack does not heal the wound. It deepens it. Speak to yourself with honesty and tenderness. Say, "I see what I have been repeating. I see why this felt familiar. I see the younger part of me that still wants a different ending. I can learn now." This kind of compassion is not weakness. It is necessary. You cannot heal a pattern by hating the part of you that carried it. That part was trying to protect you in the only way it knew. It believed that if you could finally win love from someone distant, the old emptiness would close. It believed that if you were patient enough, you would be safe. It believed that if you became valuable enough, no one would leave. It was mistaken, but it was not evil. It was wounded. Buddhist wisdom teaches us to meet suffering with awareness, not hatred. When you see craving, do not become cruel toward yourself. Observe it. When you see attachment, do not panic. Understand it. When you see repetition, do not collapse into shame. Bring light to it. What is seen clearly can begin to change. What is judged harshly often hides and returns in another form. One reason patterns repeat is because the mind mistakes unfinished pain for unfinished love. You may think you still love someone deeply when, in truth, part of you is still trying to understand why they did not love you well. You may keep returning, not because the relationship has life, but because the wound has questions. Why did they treat me like that? Why was I not enough? What did they see in others that they did not see in me? How could they receive my heart and still be careless with it? These questions can become chains. You think returning to the same type of person will answer them, but it usually creates more questions. Another unavailable person will not explain the first one. Another closed heart will not heal the first rejection. Another distant lover will not give you the childhood warmth you missed. They will only reopen the familiar place until you learn to stop seeking answers from the same kind of absence. The answer is not in making the unavailable available. The answer is in understanding why their unavailability feels so important. The answer is not in getting the cold person to become warm. The answer is in learning why coldness feels like something you must conquer. The answer is not in proving yourself to the person who does not see you. The answer is in no longer choosing people who make your worth feel like a question. Sometimes the pattern continues because peaceful people do not trigger the same desire to perform. If someone is emotionally available, you may feel exposed in a new way. You may not know how to receive without earning. You may feel uncomfortable when care is given freely. You may wonder when the catch will appear. You may test them, pull away, or become bored because your system is not used to love without anxiety. This is why healing requires learning how to receive peace, not only how to avoid pain. Receiving peace can be difficult for someone trained by emotional uncertainty. It may feel too quiet, too simple, too safe. But safe does not mean shallow. Calm does not mean empty. Consistency does not mean lack of passion. Sometimes the deepest love is not the one that makes your heart race with fear, but the one that lets your heart finally rest. You have to retrain your sense of attraction. This does not mean forcing yourself to love someone you do not love. It means learning to question why some people feel so powerful to you. Are you drawn to their soul or to the challenge? Are you drawn to their kindness or to their distance? Are you drawn to the way they treat you or to the fantasy of what it would mean if they finally changed? Are you responding to real connection or to old pain seeking a familiar stage? The more honest you become, the more you will notice the difference between desire and alignment. Desire may be loud, urgent, and restless. Alignment feels clearer. It may still be exciting, but it does not make you lose yourself. It does not demand that you abandon your needs to keep access to someone. It does not make you feel like your dignity is the price of closeness. It does not punish you for being human. Old emotional patterns also make you confuse scarcity with value. If someone gives little, you may value it more because it is rare. One message from them feels more powerful than 10 messages from someone consistent. One compliment from them feels like sunlight after a long winter. One small gesture becomes enough to keep you waiting. But scarcity does not always mean value. Sometimes it means you are starving and treating crumbs like a feast. When you are emotionally hungry, crumbs can feel meaningful. This is why you must feed your life in other ways. Build friendships that are steady. Create routines that calm your mind. Spend time with people who do not make you perform. Practice stillness. Return to your body. Nourish your gifts. The more full your life becomes, the less likely you are to confuse crumbs with love. Hunger makes poor choices feel necessary. Wholeness helps you choose with clarity. This is not about becoming so independent that you need no one. That is another wound pretending to be strength. Human beings need connection. You are allowed to want love, affection, closeness, and understanding. But you must not let your need for connection drive you back to the same people who make you feel unseen. The path is not emotional starvation. The path is wise nourishment. Buddhist practice can help you break the pattern because it teaches you to watch the mind instead of becoming the mind. When the urge to return appears, you observe it. There is the craving for their approval. When the memory appears, you observe it. There is the sweetness my mind is using to pull me back. When the fear appears, you observe it. There is the belief that being alone means being unwanted. This observing creates distance, and in that distance, choice becomes possible. Without awareness, you are pulled. With awareness, you can pause. You can place a hand on your heart and ask, is returning to this energy an act of love toward myself? You can ask, am I seeking connection or trying to repair an old wound through this person? You can ask, have they shown the capacity to meet me, or am I chasing a possibility? These questions are lanterns. They help you see where the old road leads before you walk it again. There is also grief in breaking a pattern. You may have to grieve the fantasy that this time would be different. You may have to grieve the identity of being the one who finally changes someone. You may have to grieve the hope that if this kind of person chooses you, the old pain will disappear. You may have to grieve the comfort of the familiar, even when the familiar was hurting you. Healing is not only release. Sometimes it is mourning the dream that kept you attached. Let that grief come. Do not rush it. Do not call yourself weak because you miss a pattern that wounded you. The nervous system can miss what harmed it if that harm was familiar. Missing does not mean returning is wise. Longing does not mean the person is right. Sadness does not mean you made the wrong choice. Sometimes sadness is simply the sound of an old attachment losing its home. As you heal, you begin to choose differently in small ways first. You stop responding immediately to the person who only contacts you when they need comfort. You stop explaining yourself to someone who always twists your words. You stop giving special access to someone who gives you confusion in return. You stop treating anxiety as proof of love. You stop chasing the face that looks unimpressed. You stop measuring your beauty by the person least able to appreciate it. These small choices may not look dramatic from the outside, but inside they are powerful. Every time you do not repeat the old pattern, you teach your mind a new path. Every time you choose peace over the familiar ache, you weaken the old craving. Every time you let someone unavailable remain unavailable without trying to win them, you reclaim a piece of yourself. Eventually, the same type of person may still appear, but you will respond differently. Their distance will no longer feel like a challenge. Their mixed signals will no longer feel mysterious. Their coldness will no longer make you feel desperate to become warmer. Their inability to see you will no longer make you audition. You will recognize the pattern and say, I know this road. I know where it leads. I do not need to walk it again. That moment is freedom, not because temptation never comes, but because awareness comes with it, not because your heart becomes hard, but because your heart becomes guided. You can still feel attraction. You can still feel curiosity. You can still feel the pull of old energy. But now you have wisdom beside you. You are no longer a child reaching for the same unavailable love. You are an awake person choosing where your spirit can breathe. This is how you begin to give yourself the answer you kept seeking from others. The answer is not, yes, you are worthy because this difficult person finally chose you. The answer is, you are worthy even if the difficult person never changes. The answer is not, you are lovable because you won over the cold heart. The answer is, you are lovable without winning anyone who makes love feel like a battle. The answer is not, you are enough because the old pattern ended happily. The answer is, you are enough, so the old pattern no longer has to continue. There is deep courage in choosing a new kind of person, someone who is not your usual type, someone whose care does not feel like a chase, someone whose presence does not activate your fear, someone who may not give you the old rush but gives you respect, honesty, gentleness and consistency. At first, you may not know how to trust it. That is okay. Healing often feels unfamiliar before it feels safe. Give yourself time to adjust to healthy love, healthy friendship, healthy connection. Let your body learn that calm is not danger. Let your mind learn that consistency is not boring. Let your heart learn that you do not have to earn every bit of warmth. Let your spirit learn that being seen does not have to feel like begging. And before choosing anyone else, practice being the person who no longer makes yourself unseen. Do not ignore your own discomfort. Do not dismiss your own needs. Do not silence your own truth just to keep someone near. Do not abandon your own peace to win approval. If you keep making yourself invisible, you will keep feeling drawn to people who continue the same pattern. But when you begin to see yourself, you become less available to those who refuse to see you. This is where the pattern breaks at the root. Not only by avoiding certain people, but by no longer being the version of yourself who finds their distance attractive. The old you may have been drawn to uncertainty because it matched an old wound. The healing you becomes drawn to presence because it matches your growing peace. The old you may have chased approval. The healing you seeks alignment. The old you may have asked, how can I make them choose me? The healing you asks, do I feel safe, respected, and whole here? When this shift happens, your life changes. You stop confusing rejection with a mission. You stop turning unavailability into a mountain you must climb. You stop asking people who resemble your wound to become your cure. You stop placing your future in the hands of those who keep reopening your past. You begin to understand that some attractions are not invitations. Some are lessons asking to be completed. So, if you have returned again and again to the same kind of person for a different answer, do not condemn yourself. See the pattern with compassion. You were trying to heal. You were trying to be chosen. You were trying to make the old pain end differently. But now you are learning that the answer you needed was never going to come from another emotionally unavailable face. It was going to come from the moment you stopped repeating the question. The question was, will you finally see me? The new answer is, I see myself now. The question was, will you finally choose me? The new answer is, I choose myself now. The question was, will you finally prove I am enough? The new answer is, I will no longer place my enoughness in the hands of those who make me beg for it. This is not the end of love. It is the beginning of wiser love. A love that does not come from panic. A love that does not try to repair childhood through another person's approval. A love that does not run toward closed doors because they feel familiar. A love that can recognize peace when it arrives, even if peace feels new. A love that includes you. And as this wisdom settles, you begin to walk differently. You stop chasing the same silence. You stop calling the same distance destiny. You stop mistaking the same ache for chemistry. You stop returning to the same emotional room expecting a different answer from the same kind of emptiness. You gently close the door, not because you have stopped loving, but because you have finally started learning. The pattern ends when your awareness becomes stronger than your craving. It ends when your self-respect becomes stronger than your fear of being alone. It ends when your peace becomes more precious than the old need to be chosen by those who resemble the ones who first made you feel unseen. And in that ending, something sacred begins. You are no longer trying to rewrite the past through people who keep repeating it. You are no longer asking old wounds to give new answers. You are no longer running back to the same hunger and calling it love. You are standing in the present with clearer eyes, a softer heart, and a deeper promise to yourself. I will not keep returning to what makes me abandon me. That promise is where healing begins to feel real. That promise is where healing begins to feel real. I will not keep returning to what makes me abandon me. But the moment you make that promise, life will ask you to live it in the places where your thirst is strongest. It is easy to speak self-worth when no one is withholding love from you. It is harder when the same cold person appears. The same distracted person gives you half attention. The same selfish person offers just enough to keep you thirsty, and something inside you wants to go back to the well that has been empty for years. There is a kind of thirst that makes people forget themselves. It is not thirst for water. It is thirst for approval, warmth, reassurance, tenderness, attention, and the feeling of finally being enough. And when that thirst becomes too deep, the heart may kneel anywhere. It may kneel before people who are cold. It may kneel before people who are selfish. It may kneel before people who are too distracted to notice your pain. It may kneel before people who are emotionally immature, hoping they will pour life into a place they have only ever left dry. But Buddhist wisdom would ask you to stop and look at the well before you keep lowering your cup. Is there water there? Or are you only in love with the idea that one day there might be? Has this person actually nourished your worth? Or have they mostly made you thirstier? Do you leave their presence feeling more peaceful, more steady, more seen? Or do you leave feeling more confused, more anxious, more hungry for the next drop? An empty well is not always obvious at first. Some empty wells are decorated beautifully. Some people speak softly, smile warmly, say the right words, and know exactly how to appear deep for a moment. They may have charm, they may have intelligence, they may even have pain that makes you feel compassion for them. But when the moment comes for steady care, honest presence, emotional responsibility, and true nourishment, nothing comes up. You lower your heart again and again, but the bucket returns dry. This is why begging at empty wells becomes so painful. It is not only that the person cannot give you what you need, it is that every time you ask and receive nothing, you begin to feel foolish for needing water at all. You start judging your thirst. You say, maybe I am too needy. Maybe I should not need reassurance. Maybe I should be stronger. Maybe I should be satisfied with what little they give. But your thirst is not the enemy. The problem is where you keep going to satisfy it. A thirsty person is not wrong for needing water. A heart is not weak for needing care. A soul is not dramatic for needing kindness, consistency, and emotional safety. The mistake is not that you thirst. The mistake is begging the desert to become a river. The mistake is asking someone who has never shown emotional depth to suddenly become the source of your inner nourishment. The mistake is confusing your hunger for love with proof that this particular person must feed it. Buddhist wisdom teaches that craving deepens suffering when we cling to what cannot satisfy us. Craving says, this person must be the one, this person must see me, this person must change, this person must give me the answer. Wisdom asks, is this person truly capable of giving what I seek? Craving keeps lowering the bucket into dryness. Wisdom checks whether there is water before building a life around the well. There are cold people who may not be cruel in a loud way, but their emotional temperature still wounds you. They respond without warmth. They listen without really receiving. They give attention only when it suits them. They make you feel like your feelings are too heavy for the room. When you bring your need for tenderness, they make you feel ashamed for having a heart. If you keep asking such a person to nourish your worth, you may slowly become cold toward yourself too. That is the danger. The longer you beg from coldness, the more you begin to believe warmth is too much to ask for. You start reducing your needs to match their emotional poverty. You start accepting small drops of attention as if they are rain. You tell yourself, at least they replied. At least they stayed for a while. At least they did not leave completely. But survival is not nourishment. Relief is not love. A temporary drop is not the same as a living spring. There are selfish people who cannot nourish your worth because everything must return to them. Your pain becomes inconvenient unless it affects their comfort. Your needs become important only when they fear losing access to you. Your kindness is welcomed, but your boundaries are treated like betrayal. They may enjoy your loyalty, but they do not ask what it costs you. They may receive your effort, but they do not wonder whether you are tired. They may want your presence, but not your full humanity. When you beg at the well of selfishness, your cup may return not only empty, but cracked. Because selfish people do not simply fail to give. They often take while you are asking. You come for care, and they turn the conversation toward their own wound. You come for reassurance, and they make you reassure them. You come for understanding, and they make you feel guilty for speaking. You arrive thirsty, and somehow you leave carrying their bucket too. This is why the heart becomes exhausted. It is not only thirsty, it is overused. It has been giving water to people who never noticed the well inside you was drying. It has been smiling while empty. It has been saying, "I understand," while secretly longing to be understood. It has been holding others while wondering when someone will hold it. And because you are kind, you may think this is love. But sometimes it is imbalance disguised as devotion. There are distracted people who may not mean harm, yet they cannot nourish you because they are never truly present. Their body is there, but their mind is elsewhere. Their attention is divided between desire, ambition, entertainment, worry, image, and endless noise. They hear your words, but they do not absorb them. They notice your presence, but not your pain. They respond to your messages, but not to your heart. Around them, you may feel like a voice speaking into a room where no one is fully awake. Begging from distraction can make you feel invisible in a unique way. The person is not always rejecting you directly. They are simply absent while present, and that can confuse you. You tell yourself, they are busy, they are stressed, they have a lot going on. Maybe they do. But if someone is always too distracted to care for what matters to you, their busyness becomes a wall. And if you keep pressing your worth against that wall, you will keep walking away bruised. Then there are emotionally immature people. They may want connection, but they do not know how to sustain it. They may enjoy closeness when it feels good, but avoid it when it asks for responsibility. They may make promises in emotional moments, then forget them when the pressure passes. They may apologize when they feel guilty, but repeat the same behavior when self-awareness is required. They may say they care, but they lack the emotional discipline to show care consistently. When you ask an emotionally immature person to nourish your worth, you are asking a childlike heart to do adult work. And because you may see their potential, you keep waiting. You think, they are learning, they are trying, they have been hurt too. But a person's past pain does not automatically make them ready to love well. Sometimes pain makes people more compassionate. Sometimes it makes them more defended. Sometimes it makes them more selfish. Sometimes it makes them more afraid of responsibility. You must look at what the pain has produced, not only at the pain itself. Buddhist wisdom does not ask you to condemn these people. It asks you to see clearly. A cold person may be cold because they were never shown warmth. A selfish person may be selfish because they live in fear of not having enough. A distracted person may be running from their own mind. An immature person may not have been taught emotional responsibility. You can understand all of that and still accept that they cannot be your well. This is where compassion and clarity must walk together. Compassion says, may they heal. Clarity says, I cannot drink from what is dry. Compassion says, they have causes behind their behavior. Clarity says, their causes do not remove the effect on me. Compassion says, they are suffering too. Clarity says, I do not have to suffer beside them to prove I am kind. Many people confuse spiritual love with endless access. They think being kind means staying available to everyone, even those who keep draining them. But Buddhism is not a path of emotional self-erasure. It is a path of awakening. Awakening means you notice cause and effect. If going to someone always leaves you thirstier, that is information. If explaining your heart always leaves you ashamed, that is information. If loving them always makes you abandon yourself, that is information. Wisdom listens to information. Your thirst deepens when you keep asking the wrong people to nourish it, because each failed attempt adds a new layer of hurt. First, you feel the need. Then you reach out. Then they fail to meet you. Then you feel rejected. Then you blame yourself for needing. Then you promise to need less. Then the thirst returns stronger because it was never truly met. This cycle can continue for years until you are not only thirsty for love, you are thirsty for the version of yourself that existed before you started begging. There is a quiet dignity that returns when you stop asking dry places to become rivers. At first, it may feel like loss because you are used to the ritual of trying. You are used to hoping, explaining, waiting, checking, forgiving, and returning. Your hands may feel empty when you stop carrying the bucket. But that emptiness is not failure. It is space. It is the beginning of no longer wasting your energy where life has shown you there is no nourishment. The mind may resist this. It may say, but what if this time is different? That is craving speaking. It may say, but they gave me something once. That is memory speaking. It may say, but I have already invested so much. That is attachment speaking. It may say, but I do not want to start over. That is fear speaking. Listen to these voices, but do not let them lead you. The fact that a voice is loud does not mean it is wise. A well that gave 1 drop 3 years ago is still not a reliable source of water. A person who was kind once is not automatically safe now. A person who showed tenderness in the beginning is not automatically capable of care in the present. You have to stop worshipping rare moments while ignoring repeated emptiness. The pattern is the teaching. The pattern tells you whether the well can nourish you. This does not mean people cannot change. People can change. Buddhism is built on the truth that change is possible, but change is shown through practice, not potential. It is shown through repeated effort, not emotional speeches. It is shown through humility, accountability, and changed behavior, not through the fear of losing you for one night. If you keep returning to someone only because they might change, make sure you are not using possibility to avoid reality. Reality is not cruel. Reality is a teacher. It may hurt to admit that someone cannot meet you, but it hurts far more to keep pretending they can while your spirit dries out. Reality says, this is what has been happening. Craving says, but what if one day? Reality says, look at the effect on your peace. Attachment says, but I love them. Wisdom says, love is not a reason to keep starving. You can love someone and still stop begging them to feed your worth. You can care about them and still admit they are not a source of nourishment. You can wish them well and still remove your cup from their dry well. This is not rejection, it is right understanding. You are seeing that not every person you love can be the place you go for love. There are some people you may love from a distance. There are some people you may speak to, but not depend on. There are some people you may forgive, but not trust with your deepest heart. There are some people you may understand, but not choose as your emotional home. This is not bitterness. This is mature love. It knows the difference between caring for someone and placing your worth in their hands. The empty well becomes dangerous when you begin to organize your life around getting water from it. You wait for their reply. You measure your day by their mood. You feel lifted by their attention and crushed by their distance. You lose interest in people who actually care because your mind is fixed on the one who withholds. You become loyal to your thirst instead of loyal to your healing, and little by little, you stop asking whether the well is good for you. You only ask whether it might finally give you something. This is how attachment narrows the mind. The whole world may contain rivers, rain, lakes, and oceans, but attachment makes you kneel before one dry hole and say, "Only this can save me." It is painful and almost absurd when seen clearly, but when you are inside it, it feels real. This is why mindfulness matters. Mindfulness widens the mind again. It helps you notice, I have made this person my only source. I have forgotten there is life beyond this place. I have mistaken one dry well for the whole world. The world is wider than the person who could not love you well. Your future is wider than the one who kept you waiting. Your worth is wider than the attention of someone who was too distracted to see you. Your heart is wider than the selfishness that tried to reduce it to usefulness. But you may not feel this width until you step away from the narrow place. Stepping away does not always mean a dramatic goodbye. Sometimes it begins quietly. You stop telling them everything. You stop asking them for reassurance they never give. You stop expecting emotional depth from a shallow place. You stop checking whether they finally noticed your pain. You stop returning to the same conversation that always leaves you empty. You begin to redirect your energy toward places that can actually nourish you. This redirection is a spiritual act. In Buddhist practice, where attention goes, life follows. If your attention is always fixed on the dry well, your suffering grows around it. If your attention returns to your breath, your body, your values, your community, your healing, your creativity, your work, your prayer, your inner stillness, then your life begins to grow in other directions. You are not only leaving emptiness, you are watering what is alive. Ask yourself, what have I neglected while waiting for this person to nourish me? Maybe you neglected friendships that felt peaceful. Maybe you neglected your body because anxiety consumed you. Maybe you neglected your dreams because their approval became your focus. Maybe you neglected your own silence, your own joy, your own spiritual life. Empty wells do not only fail to give water, they can make you forget the garden you were supposed to tend. This is why returning to yourself is not passive. It is not just leaving someone alone. It is rebuilding the life that thirst made you abandon. It is remembering what calms you. It is eating properly again, sleeping better, moving your body, speaking to people who do not make you feel like a burden, creating something, learning something, sitting quietly without running to the phone. Letting your nervous system discover that peace can come from within and from safe places, not only from the person who kept withholding it. The heart must be taught where to drink. If you have spent years drinking from anxiety, peace may feel tasteless at first. If you have lived on crumbs, real nourishment may feel unfamiliar. If you have been trained to beg, receiving freely may feel undeserved. Be patient with yourself. Healing is not only stopping the old behavior, it is learning to trust a new source. A new source may be your own inner stillness. This does not mean you never need others. It means you no longer use others to replace your own center. When you sit with your breath, you begin to feel that you are still here, even without their attention. When you observe your thoughts, you begin to see that craving rises and passes. When you place kindness toward your own pain, you begin to feel less desperate for careless people to soothe it. The well inside you may have been covered, but it was not destroyed. Buddhist practice often begins with returning to the breath because the breath is always in the present. Rejection pulls you into the past and future. Why did they not choose me? Will they ever come back? What did I do wrong? What if I never find love? The breath says, here. Not as an escape, but as a doorway. Here, your body is alive. Here, your heart can be held. Here, you can stop running towards someone who keeps leaving you thirsty. Here, you can choose the next wise action. Sometimes the next wise action is not sending the message. Sometimes it is not checking their page. Sometimes it is not explaining again. Sometimes it is not trying to make them understand your worth. Sometimes it is drinking water, taking a walk, calling a trusted friend, writing the truth in a journal, or sitting with the ache until the wave passes. These small acts may seem simple, but they are how you stop begging at empty wells. You interrupt the old path and create a new one. The urge to beg often comes in waves. It rises strongly, makes you feel like you must act, then slowly fades if you do not feed it. This is important. You do not have to obey every wave. A craving can feel like a command, but it is only a movement in the mind and body. It says, go back, ask again, try again, maybe this time. But if you breathe and wait, you may feel the deeper truth underneath. I am hurting. I want comfort. I want to feel chosen. I want this thirst to end. Once you hear that truth, you can comfort the thirst without returning to the dry place. This is self-compassion, not spoiling yourself, not lying to yourself, not pretending you do not need love. Self-compassion is the act of meeting your thirst with kindness instead of shame. It says, of course you want to be seen, of course you want warmth, of course this hurts, but we are not going back to what keeps making us empty. That sentence carries both tenderness and strength. It is the voice many people needed long ago but never heard. The empty well may test you by suddenly offering a drop when you are leaving. This happens often. When you stop begging, the person may sense your energy changing. They may become warmer. They may reach out. They may say what you once needed to hear. They may give enough to make you question your decision. Be careful. A drop is not always a river. Sometimes people offer a little when they feel access slipping, not because they have become a source of true nourishment. Do not judge only the drop. Watch what follows. Is there consistency? Is there humility? Is there accountability? Is there change without you forcing it? Is there care when they are not afraid of losing you? Is there presence when things are inconvenient? If not, the drop may be another hook, and your thirst may turn that hook into hope. Hope must be disciplined by wisdom. Hope without wisdom will lead you back to the same dry place. Wisdom does not kill hope, it cleans it. It says, I hope they heal, but I will not starve while waiting. I hope they grow, but I will not make their growth my oxygen. I hope life brings peace to both of us, but I will stop confusing their occasional attention with nourishment. Some people may accuse you of becoming cold when you stop begging. They were comfortable when your thirst made you available. They liked the version of you that kept asking, kept giving, kept waiting. When you begin to protect your cup, they may call you different, distant, selfish, proud, or unforgiving. But do not let those words frighten you back into thirst. Sometimes people call you cold when you stop burning yourself to keep them warm. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to become less available to what drains you. You are allowed to become quieter around people who do not listen. You are allowed to stop offering emotional access to those who mishandle it. You are allowed to stop bringing your deepest needs to those who repeatedly show they cannot meet them. This is not cruelty. This is the beginning of inner order. Inner order matters because suffering often comes from putting things in the wrong place. You place your worth in someone else's approval. You place your peace in someone else's consistency. You place your healing in someone else's apology. You place your identity in someone else's attention. Then, when they fail, everything inside you shakes. Buddhism invites you to place things where they belong. Your worth belongs in truth. Your peace belongs in practice. Your healing belongs in awareness. Your love belongs where it can flow without destroying you. Not every need should be taken to every person. This sounds simple, but it is life-changing. You may have a parent you cannot take emotional vulnerability to. You may have a friend you cannot take your deepest fears to. You may have a partner who is not yet capable of holding certain parts of you with care. You may have someone you love who cannot be your safe place. Accepting this can hurt, but it also prevents further harm. You stop expecting a door to be a bed. You stop expecting a wall to become a window. You let things be what they are. Acceptance is not approval. It does not mean saying their coldness is okay. It means you stop arguing with the fact that they are cold. You stop saying, but they should be warmer, as if your should can heat them. You see what is here, then you decide wisely. Acceptance gives you power because you are no longer trapped in fantasy. You can finally respond to reality. When you accept that a well is empty, you naturally begin to search for water elsewhere. This is not betrayal. It is survival. It is wisdom. It is the body moving toward life. You were not created to kneel forever at dryness. Your heart was not made to beg for drops from people who do not know how to give. Your worth was not meant to become thinner each time someone failed to nourish it. The right nourishment does not always come from one person. Sometimes it comes from many sources. A trusted friend who listens with care, a spiritual practice that steadies you, a therapist or mentor who helps you see your patterns, a community where you are not made to feel strange for having a heart, a creative gift that reconnects you with your own life, a quiet morning where you realize you are no longer waiting for the same person to decide your mood. These forms of nourishment may not feel as dramatic as winning the attention of the unavailable person, but they build something stronger. They build a life where your worth is not starving. They build a mind that no longer depends on emotional gambling. They build a heart that can love without begging. They build dignity. Dignity is the feeling of standing up from the dry well and saying, "I wanted water here, but I will not die here." It is not anger. It is not revenge. It is not pride in the shallow sense. It is the quiet memory of your own sacredness. Dignity says, "My thirst matters, my heart matters, my peace matters. I can care about someone and still refuse to keep emptying myself for them." This dignity may feel new if you have spent years confusing love with pursuit. But let it grow. Let it change the way you choose. Let it teach you to notice who nourishes you and who only activates your hunger. Let it teach you to value the people who show up steadily, not only the people who awaken longing. Let it teach you to stop making gods out of those who give you the least. The less someone gives, the more the wounded mind may obsess. This is because scarcity creates focus. But focus is not proof of love. Obsession is not proof of destiny. Sometimes your mind keeps returning because it is hungry, not because the person is holy. When you feed the hunger in healthier ways, the obsession often loses its power. You begin to see the person more clearly, not as the answer, not as the source, not as the final judge of your worth, just as a person with limits. And seeing them as limited is freeing. You no longer need to hate them. You no longer need to worship them. You no longer need to beg them. You can simply say, "They do not have what I kept asking for." That sentence may be sad, but it is clean. It does not attack them, and it does not attack you. It names reality. This clean sadness is better than dirty hope. Dirty hope keeps you trapped in denial, bargaining, and self-betrayal. Clean sadness allows grief, but it also allows movement. It says, "I wish it were different, but I see what is true." That kind of sadness can heal because it does not keep reopening the wound with fantasy. There will come a moment when you realize the empty well was not only a person, it was a belief. The belief that your worth must be confirmed by someone who withholds. The belief that love is more meaningful when it is hard to get. The belief that being chosen by a cold person will finally make you feel warm inside. The belief that you must convince, prove, and perform before you deserve care. Once you see the belief, you can begin to release the whole pattern, not just one person. This is the deeper Buddhist lesson. The outer well is dry because the inner attachment is thirsty in a confused way. It is searching outside for what must be remembered within. You cannot force another person to become your source of worth. Even if they gave you approval today, the thirst would return tomorrow if the root belief remained. You would need another sign, another message, another promise, another proof. Craving is never satisfied for long. It always asks for more. Inner worth is different. It does not need constant feeding from unstable sources. It is nourished by awareness, right action, self-respect, compassion, and truth. Each time you act in alignment with your dignity, the inner well fills a little. Each time you tell yourself the truth instead of chasing illusion, it fills a little. Each time you choose not to beg where you have been emptied before, it fills a little. Each time you sit with your pain without abandoning yourself, it fills a little. One day, you may look back and see that you are no longer thirsty in the same desperate way. You still want love, but you do not want it at the cost of your soul. You still enjoy attention, but you do not collapse without it. You still care about people, but you do not make their limitations your prison. You still feel rejection, but you do not run back to empty wells to fix it. You have learned where not to drink. This is not the end of desire. It is the purification of desire. You begin to desire what brings peace, not just what triggers longing. You begin to desire honesty, not confusion. Mutual care, not emotional crumbs. Presence, not performance. Depth, not drama. You begin to understand that the heart does not need to be punished in order to feel alive. So if you have been begging at empty wells, let this truth meet you gently. You were not wrong for being thirsty. You were wronged by the belief that dryness was all you deserved. You were not foolish for wanting love. You were hurting because you kept asking those without water to become your rain. You were not too needy. You were undernourished. And now wisdom is asking you to stop calling thirst devotion. Stand up from the well, not with hatred, not with bitterness, not with the need to prove anything. Stand up because your knees are tired. Stand up because your cup matters. Stand up because your heart has waited long enough beside what cannot feed it. Stand up because somewhere beyond this dry place, there is life you have not yet allowed yourself to receive. The empty well may remain empty. Let it. You do not have to curse it. You do not have to decorate it. You do not have to keep checking whether water has appeared. You can bow to the lesson and walk toward nourishment. You can say, "This place taught me thirst. Now I will let wisdom teach me where to drink." And as you walk away, you will feel something return. Not all at once, but slowly. Your energy, your dignity, your clarity, your appetite for life, your ability to laugh without waiting for their approval, your ability to rest without replaying their silence, your ability to love without begging. The water you were seeking begins to rise from places you had forgotten, your breath, your truth, your inner stillness, your safe connections, your own returning heart. This is how the thirst begins to end, not because the empty well finally changes, but because you finally stop kneeling there. And if you have listened this far, let this truth settle gently in your heart. Rejection was never the final proof that you were not enough. Sometimes it was only the painful sign that you were asking the wrong people to see what they did not have the wisdom, maturity, or openness to recognize. You kept bringing your light to clouded eyes. You kept placing your heart in closed hands. You kept lowering your cup into empty wells, hoping that one day cold people would become warm, distracted people would become present, and unavailable people would finally choose you with care. But Buddhist wisdom brings you back to something deeper. Your worth was never meant to depend on someone else's blindness. Their inability to value you is not proof that you lack value. Their rejection is not your identity. Their silence is not your name. Their distance is not your destiny. Some people cannot see you because they have not learned how to see clearly. Some cannot hold your love because they have not learned how to hold anything sacred. Some cannot nourish your heart because they are thirsty, empty, and lost within themselves. So stop begging to be chosen by people who make you abandon yourself. Stop returning to the same wound, hoping for a different answer. Stop explaining your worth to those who benefit from misunderstanding it. The moment you stop auditioning for love, something inside you becomes free. You begin to choose peace over panic, dignity over desperation, and truth over the painful need to be approved by everyone. And now, I want you to leave one honest word in the comments. Write, "I choose myself," if you are ready to stop asking the wrong people to define your worth. Let that comment be more than a sentence. Let it be a quiet promise to your own heart. If this teaching helped you see your pain differently, subscribe to the channel and stay with us. More Buddhist wisdom is coming to help you return to yourself, one lesson at a time.